The alarms blare throughout Arcturus Prime as David Stevens, Human Corrections Officer, strides purposefully toward the chaos. This is why Deathworlder prison guards are always human. Arcturus Prime, the galactic maximum security penitentiary station, houses the most dangerous criminals from across the universe. Today, its vaunted security measures have failed spectacularly. A massive riot erupts, instigated by a group of Deathworlder inmates from various species. They've overwhelmed the alien guards, seizing control of an entire cell block. David arrives at the scene, his team of specially trained human guards close behind. Lena, an Arcturian administrator, rushes to meet him, her large eyes wide with panic. She briefs him on the dire situation. The Arcturian Galactic Council insisted on using our own species as guards, Lena explains, her voice trembling. We believed our advanced technology and pacifist nature would be sufficient. David nods grimly. The Arcturians' mistake is now painfully clear. Their physically weaker guards were no match for the raw strength and aggression of Deathworlder inmates. This critical flaw in the prison security protocols has been exposed in the worst possible way. Assessing the situation quickly, David formulates a plan. He turns to his team, issuing rapid-fire orders. They equip themselves with non-lethal weapons, specifically designed to incapacitate Deathworlders without causing permanent harm. As they prepare to breach the cell block, an urgent message comes through David's comm link. Intelligence reports the riot leaders are planning to access the station's communication systems. Their goal: broadcast their demands across the galaxy. David's jaw clenches. The implications are clear and terrifying. Success for the rioters could inspire similar uprisings on other prison planets, threatening the stability of the entire galactic correctional system. The stakes couldn't be higher. David knows the success or failure of his team's intervention will have far-reaching consequences for humanity's role in galactic security. If they succeed, it could cement humanity's position as the premier species for handling high-risk security situations. Failure could lead to the removal of humans from all off-world prison assignments, leaving the galaxy vulnerable to more Deathworlder uprisings. With a deep breath, David signals his team. They move into the chaotic cell block, facing a diverse array of dangerous Deathworlder inmates. The rioters are armed with improvised weapons, their desperation fueling their ferocity. The human guards navigate through the prison's complex layout. They encounter barricades hastily constructed from smashed furniture. Traps lurk around corners, and ambushes spring from shadowy recesses. David leads his team through each obstacle, their training and adaptability evident in every move. As they push deeper into enemy territory, David encounters unexpected resistance. A particularly cunning Deathworlder inmate seems to have united the various factions under his leadership. This development forces David to adapt his strategy on the fly, showcasing the human ability to think creatively under pressure. In the control room, Lena monitors the situation. Her initial skepticism about human involvement gradually turns to admiration. She watches in awe as David's team demonstrates their effectiveness in handling the crisis, their actions a stark contrast to the overwhelmed Arcturian guards. The human guards fight their way through the riot-torn prison, inching closer to their goal. Finally, they corner the riot leaders in the prison's central hub. David stands at the forefront, his team arrayed behind him. Across the room, the Deathworlder ringleader sneers, surrounded by his most loyal followers. The stage is set for a climactic confrontation. The outcome will determine not just the fate of Arcturus Prime, but potentially reshape the galaxy's approach to Deathworlder incarceration. In this moment, the true value of human guards in Deathworlder prisons hangs in the balance. David locked eyes with the Deathworlder ringleader, tension crackling in the air between them. The central hub, once a symbol of order and control, now stood as a battleground. Makeshift barricades rose like jagged teeth, manned by armed inmates ready to defend their newfound territory. As David assessed the situation, his trained eye caught details others might miss. The ringleader, a Thoraxian with imposing stature and chitinous armor, stood at the center of the chaos. His multifaceted eyes gleamed with cunning, and David knew this was no ordinary inmate. Krazuke, one of David's team members, whispered, recognition dawning. The Thoraxian warlord. David's mind raced. A frontal assault would be suicide. He raised his hand, signaling his team to hold position. Fall back, he ordered, his voice low and steady. We regroup and reassess. As they retreated to a secure position, David activated his comm link. Lena, I need access to the environmental systems. There was a pause before Lena's voice crackled through. That's unprecedented. Are you certain? Trust me, David replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. After a moment's hesitation, Lena's voice returned. Access granted. What's your plan? David outlined his strategy quickly. As he spoke, he could almost see Lena's large eyes widening in understanding. With control established, David set his plan in motion. The hub's oxygen levels began to rise imperceptibly. Simultaneously, a mild sedative gas seeped through the ventilation system, its presence masked by the increased oxygen. Inside the hub, the effects slowly took hold. The Deathworlder inmates, their senses honed by harsh home worlds, failed to notice the subtle shift. Their aggression spiked, fueled by the oxygen-rich air. Arguments broke out, alliances fracturing under the strain. David watched through the security feeds, waiting for the perfect moment. As the sedative began to take effect, he gave a signal. Move in. Non-lethal takedowns only. His team surged forward, their specialized weapons at the ready. They moved with practiced precision, adapting their tactics for each Deathworlder species they encountered. A Zenthian inmate, usually light on his feet, stumbled as he tried to evade. A well-placed shot from a stun baton brought him down. A Kraloxi, known for their thick hides, found his natural armor useless against the calibrated frequency of a sonic disruptor. David led from the front, his movements fluid and purposeful. He ducked under a swung pipe, countering with a swift strike to his attacker's solar plexus. The inmate dropped, gasping for air. As they pushed deeper into the hub, David caught sight of Krazuke. The Thoraxian warlord stood atop a makeshift platform, his posture radiating defiance. In his clawed hand, he held a device that made David's blood run cold. Stop right there, human. Krazuke's voice boomed, the alien timbre filled with malice. One more step, and I'll blow this entire station to the void. David raised his hand, halting his team's advance. His mind raced, analyzing the situation. The device in Krazuke's hand was crude but undoubtedly dangerous, a makeshift explosive cobbled together from stolen materials. Think about what you're doing, Krazuke, David called out, his voice calm despite the dire situation. You detonate that, and you die too. Krazuke's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. Death is preferable to continued imprisonment. But perhaps we can negotiate, human. Your kind understands the value of a good deal, don't you? As David engaged Krazuke in conversation, he made a subtle hand signal to Sergeant Marcus Carter. Carter nodded almost imperceptibly and began to inch his way around the perimeter of the room, his eyes fixed on the explosive device. What exactly did you have in mind? David asked, keeping Krazuke's attention focused on him. As the Thoraxian launched into a list of demands, Carter reached the base of the platform. With steady hands, he began to work on the explosive device, his expertise in alien technology proving invaluable. The seconds stretched into minutes, each moment fraught with tension. David continued to negotiate, buying time for Carter to complete his delicate work. Suddenly, Krazuke's antennae twitched. He glanced down, spotting Carter. With a roar of rage, he moved to activate the device. Now! David shouted. In that instant, several things happened at once. David lunged forward, tackling Krazuke. Carter yanked the final wire free from the explosive, and the rest of the team surged forward, subduing the remaining inmates. The device in Krazuke's hand fizzled harmlessly, its threat neutralized. The Thoraxian warlord struggled beneath David, but the effects of the sedative had taken their toll. With a final, defiant click of his mandibles, Krazuke surrendered. As the dust settled, David surveyed the scene. The hub, once a battlefield, now echoed with the sounds of restraints being applied and inmates being led away. His team moved efficiently, securing the area and tending to the few injuries sustained during the operation. Lena's voice came through the calm, tinged with awe. David, I don't know what to say. You and your team performed admirably. David allowed himself a small smile. We're not done yet. We need to figure out how this happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. As he spoke, his mind was already racing ahead. The ease with which the riot had been organized, the access to restricted areas, it all pointed to a larger problem. Something more was at play here, and David was determined to uncover the truth. With the immediate threat contained, David turned his attention to the future. The real work was just beginning. As the last of the restrained inmates were escorted from the central hub, David Stevens surveyed the aftermath of the riot. The acrid smell of discharged weapons and sweat hung in the air, a stark reminder of the chaos that had nearly consumed Arcturus Prime. Excellent work, team, David said, his voice steady despite the exhaustion creeping into his bones. But our job's far from finished. We need to understand how this happened and prevent it from occurring again. Over the next few days, David and his team worked tirelessly to implement enhanced security measures across the facility. They combed through every inch of the affected areas, their keen eyes searching for any clues that might shed light on the riot's origins. It was during one of these sweeps that Sergeant Marcus Carter made a startling discovery. Hidden behind a loose panel in a high-security cell, he found a sophisticated communication device, its sleek design a stark contrast to the crude surroundings. "Sir, you need to see this," Carter called out, his voice tight with tension. David crossed the cell in 3 quick strides, his eyes widening as he took in the device. "This is far beyond anything these inmates should have access to," he muttered, turning the object over in his hands. The implications were clear and disturbing. This level of technology suggested outside help, a conspiracy that reached far beyond the prison walls. With mounting evidence in hand, David requested an urgent meeting with Warden KX Lore. The Arcturian male's stern demeanor seemed to have softened slightly in the wake of the human team's success during the riot. In the warden's office, David laid out his findings. "Sir, we've uncovered evidence of a larger conspiracy. The riot was just the tip of the iceberg." Warden KX Lore's large eyes narrowed as he absorbed the information. "This is troubling," he said, his voice carrying the weight of his position. "What do you propose, Officer Stevens?" "A full investigation, sir," David replied without hesitation. "We need to trace these devices back to their source and root out any potential collaborators within our staff." The warden was silent for a long moment, his antennae twitching slightly as he considered the request. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. I'm assigning you to lead this investigation. Choose your team carefully, Stevens. The security of Arcturus Prime depends on your success." David wasted no time in assembling his team. Sergeant Carter was an obvious choice, his keen eye for detail invaluable in their search for evidence. To round out the group, David brought in Lieutenant Jack Harper, a human intelligence specialist whose analytical skills were unmatched. As they delved deeper into their investigation, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Security breaches were not isolated to a single sector, but spread across multiple areas of the prison. The team traced the contraband to a series of unmarked supply shipments that had somehow bypassed standard security protocols. "This goes higher than we thought," Harper said one evening, his eyes bloodshot from hours of poring over data logs. "These shipments were cleared by someone with high-level access." David nodded grimly. "We're looking at corruption within the Arcturian Galactic Council itself." As they worked to unravel the conspiracy, David couldn't ignore the shifting dynamics among the inmate population. The failed riot had created a power vacuum, and various factions were jockeying for control. What caught David's attention, however, was the growing alliance among Deathworlder inmates from different species. They're bonding over their shared experiences, David explained to Warden KX during one of their daily briefings. "It's creating a new kind of threat to our security." The warden's expression was grave. "What do you suggest?" David took a deep breath, knowing his next words would be controversial. "We need a specialized unit, Surhuman guards trained in advanced negotiation and conflict resolution, with a focus on Deathworlder psychology." KX's antennae twitched rapidly, a sign of his agitation. "Humans in such a critical role? The Council will not approve." "With all due respect, sir," David countered, "the Council's current approach nearly led to a catastrophic breach. We need to adapt." After a tense moment, the warden nodded reluctantly. "Very well, Stevens. Proceed with your plan. But the responsibility for its success or failure rests on your shoulders." As David began the process of recruiting for this new unit, he received an unexpected volunteer. Lena, the Arcturian administrator who had initially doubted the human's capabilities, approached him in the corridor outside the command center. "Officer Stevens," she said, her large eyes meeting his gaze steadily, "I'd like to join your team as a liaison between human and Arcturian staff." David raised an eyebrow, surprised by the request. "Are you sure? It won't be an easy role." Lena nodded firmly. "I've seen what your team can do. I believe this is the best way forward for Arcturus Prime." With Lena on board, the team's investigation gained new momentum. They were making progress, but the sense of urgency grew with each passing day. The corruption they were uncovering ran deep, and David couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. His fears were confirmed when Lieutenant Harper burst into the command center, his face pale and his breath coming in short gasps. "Sir, we've got a problem. A big one." David's hand instinctively went to his weapon. "What is it, Harper?" "I infiltrated a meeting between some of the corrupt staff members," Harper explained, his words tumbling out in a rush. "They're planning a massive breakout attempt, not just here but across multiple facilities in the sector. Thousands of Deathworlder inmates, sir, if they succeed." David didn't need Harper to finish the thought. The implications were clear and terrifying. A breakout on that scale would create chaos that could destabilize entire star systems. "Lock down the facility," David ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. "Now!" "Lock down the facility," David ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. "And get me a direct line to the Arcturian Galactic Council. We need to alert them immediately." As his team sprang into action, sirens blaring throughout Arcturus Prime, David's comm unit crackled to life. To his surprise, it wasn't Warden KXLOR or a member of his team, but a transmission from the Council itself. "Commander Stevens," a grave voice intoned, "this is High Counselor Vexna. We have an urgent situation that requires your immediate attention." David's brow furrowed. "High Counselor, we've just uncovered a plot for a massive breakout attempt. I was about to contact you, Dash." "I'm afraid it's far worse than that, Commander," Vexna interrupted. "We're receiving reports of simultaneous uprisings across multiple facilities in the sector. This is a coordinated effort on an unprecedented scale." David's mind raced, processing the implications. How many facilities are we talking about? "At least 7 major prisons, possibly more," Vexnar replied, her voice tight with tension. "The Council has declared a state of emergency. We're invoking the Galactic Security Treaty's emergency clause, granting human forces temporary authority over all affected correctional facilities." David's eyes widened. This was a monumental shift in policy, one that would send shockwaves through interstellar politics. "Understood, High Counselor. What are your orders?" "You're being promoted to commander, effective immediately," Vexnar said. "Your mission is to assemble and lead a large-scale task force to address this crisis. We need you to mobilize human security forces from Earth and nearby colonies. Create specialized teams for each affected prison." "Yes, ma'am," David responded, already mentally cataloging the resources he'd need. "Do we have a code name for this operation?" "Lockdown Protocol," Vexnar replied. "This will be the largest human-led security intervention in galactic history, Commander. The fate of our sector hangs in the balance." As David began issuing orders to initiate the massive operation, Lieutenant Harper burst into the command center, his face pale with shock. "Sir," Harper said, his voice low and urgent, "I've uncovered something you need to hear. It's about the mastermind behind all this." David gestured for Harper to continue, his stomach tightening with apprehension. "It's High Counselor Zexra," Harper revealed, his words hanging heavy in the air. "He's been orchestrating this from within the Council itself. This isn't just a prison break. It's a coup attempt." The implications hit David like a physical blow. They weren't just facing a security threat. They were up against a conspiracy that could reshape the entire galactic power structure. "We need to split our focus," David decided, his mind racing. "Sergeant Carter, I want you to lead the riot control efforts across the affected facilities. Use the techniques we developed here at Arcturus Prime. Adapt them as needed for each prison's unique layout and population." Carter nodded, his expression grim, but determined. "Yes, sir, I'll start assembling teams immediately." David turned to Harper. "You and I will lead a smaller, elite unit. Our job is to uncover the full extent of Zexaray's involvement and identify any other collaborators within the Arcturian government." "What about me?" Lena stepped forward, her large eyes fixed on David. "I need you with us, Lena," David said. "Your inside knowledge of Council operations will be crucial for our investigation." As the command center buzzed with activity, David felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The next few hours were a blur of tactical planning, resource allocation, and rapid deployments. Human security forces from across the sector converged on the affected prisons, each team armed with specialized non-lethal weaponry and environmental control strategies. Reports began flooding in as the human-led teams engaged the rioting inmates. The level of coordination among the Deathworlders was unlike anything they'd seen before, confirming David's suspicions about high-level support for their actions. In the midst of coordinating the multi-pronged operation, David's secure comm unit chimed with an incoming message. The sender was listed as unknown, but the encryption was unmistakably Arcturian in origin. David's eyes widened as he read the contents. It was a warning, sent by someone within the Arcturian government, alerting him to an imminent assassination attempt on council members who opposed Zexaray's hidden agenda. "Change of plans," David announced to his team. "We need to divert some of our resources to protect potential targets within the council. Lena, I need a list of anyone who might stand in Zexaray's way." As Lena began compiling the list, David felt the pressure mounting. They were racing against time on multiple fronts, containing the spreading riots, gathering evidence against Zexra, and now preventing a series of high-profile assassinations. The next phase of lockdown protocol was about to begin, and David knew that the actions he and his team took in the coming hours would shape the future of not just the prison system, but the entire galactic political landscape. With a deep breath, he squared his shoulders and prepared to face the challenges ahead. With a deep breath, he squared his shoulders and prepared to face the challenges that lay before him. "All right, team," David said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We're initiating Operation Lockdown Protocol. Our first priority is to coordinate interventions across all affected prison facilities." He turned to Sergeant Carter, who stood at attention, ready for orders. "Marcus, I need you to lead teams to the most critical locations. Start with Nova Penitentiary. We've received reports of severe unrest there." Carter nodded sharply. "Understood. Sir, I'll deploy immediately." As Carter left to assemble his teams, David focused on the mounting evidence against High Counselor XRA. He and Lena pored over encrypted files, piecing together the extent of the conspiracy. Suddenly, Lieutenant Harper burst into the command center, his face grave. "Commander, we've intercepted chatter about potential assassination attempts on council members opposing XRA's agenda." David's mind focused. This new threat forced him to reassess his strategy. "Jack, I need you to lead a protective detail. Identify the at-risk council members and keep them safe." "Yes, sir," Harper replied, already moving to action. As the command center buzzed with activity, reports began flooding in from the various prison facilities. David's comm unit lit up with urgent messages, each demanding his immediate attention. "Sir," an aide called out, "Sergeant Carter reports heavy resistance at Nova Penitentiary. The Deathworlder inmates have taken control of the power systems." David's mind raced, formulating a response. Tell Carter to utilize night vision and thermal imaging tech. He needs to regain control sector by sector, using non-lethal tactics. Meanwhile, at Arcturus Prime, Warden KXLOR's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander Stevens, your proposed changes are proving effective. The integration of human guards has prevented a full-scale riot here." "Good work, Warden," David responded. "Keep me updated on any developments." As the situation at the prisons unfolded, David and Lena continued their investigation into XRA's involvement. Their search led them to a secure data hub on the Arcturian homeworld. "Look at this," Lena said, her eyes wide as she decrypted a series of files. "There's mention of an organization called the Galactic Liberation Front." David leaned in, scanning the information. "They're connected to XRA, and they're planning to use the free Deathworlders as shock troops in a galaxy-wide insurrection." The implications were staggering. This explained the coordinated nature of the prison uprisings and the sophisticated resources at the inmates' disposal. As they delved deeper into the files, David's comm unit chimed with an incoming transmission. The encryption was unlike anything he'd seen before. "It's a coded message," he muttered, quickly working to decipher it. His eyes widened as he read the contents. "Lena, we've got the location of a clandestine GLF meeting. XRA will be there, along with other high-ranking conspirators." Lena's antennae twitched with excitement. This could be our chance to expose the entire conspiracy. David nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. "We need to assemble an elite strike team, a mix of human operatives and loyal Arcturian security forces." As they began preparations for the raid, David's comm unit buzzed again. This time, it was Sergeant Carter, his voice tight with urgency. "Commander, we've got a situation at Nova Penitentiary," Carter reported. "The inmates are attempting to hijack a prison transport ship. If they succeed, they could spread this insurrection to other star systems." David felt the weight of command pressing down on him. He now faced a critical decision: proceed with the raid on the GLF meeting, potentially exposing the entire conspiracy, or divert resources to prevent the prison transport hijacking. Time was running out. The fate of the stars hung in the balance, and David knew his next move would shape the course of the ongoing crisis. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the decision that lay ahead. He took a deep breath, weighing his options carefully. "We need to act on both fronts," David announced, his voice firm with perseverance. "Lieutenant Harper, you'll lead the raid on the GLF meeting. Gather all the evidence you can against ZXRA and his co-conspirators. I'll head to Nova Penitentiary to support Sergeant Carter." Harper nodded sharply. "Understood. Sir, we'll expose this conspiracy." David turned to Lena. "I need you to coordinate from here. Keep me updated on all fronts, including Arcturus Prime." As his team sprang into action, David rushed to the hangar, boarding a high-speed military shuttle. The engines roared to life, pushing him back into his seat as the craft rocketed towards Nova Penitentiary. During the journey, his comm unit buzzed with updates. Harper's voice crackled through, tense but controlled. "Sir, we've infiltrated the GLF meeting location. Surveillance equipment is in place. We're gathering intel on ZXRA's involvement as we speak." "Excellent work, Lieutenant," David responded. "Stay alert and be prepared for anything." The shuttle's engines strained as David pushed them to their limits, the stars blurring outside the view screen. As he approached Nova Penitentiary, the magnitude of the crisis became clear. The massive prison complex was a hive of activity, emergency lights flashing across its surface. David's comm unit lit up again, this time with Sergeant Carter's voice. "Commander, the situation is critical. Deathworlder inmates have seized control of the main hangar. They're attempting to override the security systems on a prison transport vessel." "I'm on my way, Sergeant. Hold them off as long as you can," David replied, his mind already formulating a plan. The shuttle touched down with a jolt, and David sprinted towards the main hangar, the sound of weapons fire growing louder with each step. As he entered, he was met with chaos. Human guards and Deathworlder inmates were locked in fierce combat, the air thick with the acrid smell of discharged weapons and the metallic tang of blood. David quickly assessed the situation. The inmates, using their superior strength and reflexes, were pushing back the human security forces. At the far end of the hangar, a group of Deathworlders worked feverishly to hack into the transport ship systems. Without hesitation, David accessed the prison's environmental controls from his wrist computer. His fingers flew over the holographic interface as he initiated a rapid depressurization of the hangar. Alarms blared as the air began to thin. Both guards and inmates scrambled for emergency breathing apparatus, the sudden change in atmosphere momentarily halting the combat. David used the confusion to his advantage, signaling to Carter and his team to regroup. "New plan," David shouted over the comms. "We push towards the transport ship. Non-lethal tactics only. We need to capture as many of the ringleaders as possible for questioning." As they advanced, David's comm unit chimed with an urgent message from Arcturus Prime. Warden Kexlor's voice came through, strained and breathless. "Commander Stevens, we have a situation. The Thoraxian warlord Krazuke and a group of his followers have broken out of their cells. They're attempting to access the station's weapon systems." David's mind raced, processing this new threat. "Understood, Warden. Implement lockdown protocols and seal off all access points to the weapons control room. I'll direct additional support your way as soon as possible." The battle in Nova Penitentiary's hangar intensified. David and Carter led the charge, employing a combination of stun grenades, net launchers, and close-quarters combat techniques. The Deathworlder inmates fought back ferociously, their enhanced strength and speed making them formidable opponents even in the thinned atmosphere. As they neared the transport ship, David's comm unit crackled again. This time, it was Lieutenant Harper, his voice tight with tension. "Commander, we've gathered crucial evidence linking ZXRA to the riots and the planned insurrection. But our cover's been blown. We're engaged in a firefight with the GLF members." "Hold your ground, Lieutenant," David ordered, ducking under a swipe from a burly Krolovar inmate. "Secure that evidence at all costs." David and Carter fought their way up the transport ship's boarding ramp, pushing back wave after wave of Deathworlder inmates. As they reached the ship's bridge, David found himself face to face with a massive Krolovar, his scales glinting in the emergency lighting. "Jarshnak," Carter growled, recognizing the infamous inmate. The Krolovar's eyes narrowed, focusing on David. "So, the human commander graced us with his presence," Jarshnak rumbled, his voice like gravel. "You're too late. This ship will be ours, and it's only the beginning." David raised his stunner, keeping it trained on Jarshnak. "It's over. Stand down now, and we can end this without further violence." Jaroshnak's response was a roar of defiance as he charged forward, his massive form a blur of motion. David barely had time to dodge, feeling the rush of air as the Krolovar's claws missed him by inches. The two circled each other on the bridge, the fate of the entire escape attempt hanging in the balance. David knew that his next moves would not only determine the outcome of this battle, but potentially reshape the future of human involvement in galactic security. As David prepared to engage Jarshnak in close combat, his mind raced with the knowledge that across the sector, his teams were fighting similar battles. The success or failure of these simultaneous operations would ripple through the interstellar community, forever changing the delicate balance of power between humans and their alien allies. With a deep breath, David steadied himself, ready to face the challenge head-on. The next few moments would be crucial, not just for him, but for the entire galaxy. With a deep breath, David steadied himself, ready to face the challenge head-on. The next few moments would be crucial, not just for him, but for the entire operation. Jarshnak lunged forward, his massive claws slicing through the air. David ducked, feeling the rush of wind as the Krolovar's attack missed him by mere centimeters. He countered with a quick jab to Jarshnak's midsection, his fist connecting with hardened scales. The Krolovar grunted, more annoyed than hurt. "You fight well for a human," he growled, his eyes narrowing. "But you cannot hope to match my strength." David didn't waste breath on a reply. Instead, he feinted left, then pivoted right, using his smaller size and greater agility to his advantage. His specialized training in Deathworlder combat techniques allowed him to anticipate Jarshnak's movements, staying one step ahead of the powerful alien. The bridge of the prison transport became their arena. David used the ship's control panels and structural supports as makeshift shields, deflecting Jarshnak's powerful blows. The Krolovar's frustration grew with each failed attack, his movements becoming wilder and less controlled. Outside the bridge, the sounds of combat echoed through the ship's corridors. Sergeant Carter's voice crackled over David's comm unit. "Commander, we've secured the engine room and are moving to neutralize the remaining inmates. How's your situation?" David ducked under another of Jarshnak's swipes before responding. "Engage with the leader. Keep pushing forward, Carter. Use non-lethal force where possible." As the battle raged on, David's mind raced, searching for a way to end this quickly. His eyes darted around the bridge, taking in every detail. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Maneuvering himself towards the ship's main control console, David waited for Jarshnak to charge. At the last possible moment, he sidestepped, allowing the Krolovar's momentum to carry him forward. In one fluid motion, David's hand flew across the artificial gravity controls. The effect was immediate. Jarshnak roared in surprise as the localized gravity around him suddenly intensified. His massive frame, usually an advantage, now worked against him as he struggled to move under the increased gravitational pull. Seizing the opportunity, David closed in. With precision born from years of training, he struck at key pressure points on the Krolovar's body. Jarshnak's eyes widened in shock as his limbs began to fail him. How is this possible?" the Deathworlder gasped, sinking to his knees. David stood over him, breathing heavily. "You relied too much on your physical strength, Jarshnak. True combat is about adapting, using your environment and outsmarting your opponent. With a final, well-placed strike, David rendered the Krolovar unconscious. He quickly secured Jarshnak with reinforced restraints before normalizing the ship's gravity. Carter, he called into his comm unit. The bridge is secure. What's your status? All clear, Commander, came the reply. We've neutralized the remaining inmates. Minimal casualties on both sides, as per your orders. David allowed himself a moment of relief. The immediate threat on the transport ship had been contained. But he knew this was just one battle in a much larger conflict. As if to underscore that thought, his comm unit chimed with an incoming transmission. Lieutenant Harper's voice came through, tense and filled with static. Commander, we've secured the GLF meeting location. High Counselor XRA is in custody, along with several other conspirators. We've obtained crucial evidence linking them to the riots and the planned insurrection. Excellent work, Jack, David responded. What's your current situation? We're securing the area and preparing for extraction, Harper reported. But, sir, there's more. We've uncovered information about the GLF's broader plans. The prison riots were just a diversion for something much bigger. David's mind raced with the implications. Understood. Secure that information and get your team out of there safely. We'll debrief once you're clear. No sooner had he ended the call with Harper than another urgent message came through, this time from Arcturus Prime. Warden Kaexlor's voice was strained but determined. Commander Stevens, Krasuke, and his followers have been contained. Your strategies proved invaluable in our defense. Well done, Warden, David replied. I knew you and your team were up to the challenge. As the immediate crises across multiple fronts began to stabilize, David's comm unit lit up once more. This time, it was a direct transmission from Arcturian High Command. Commander Stevens. The voice on the other end was crisp and authoritative. Your presence is required immediately for a high-level strategic meeting. We need to discuss the implementation of new security protocols across all galactic prison facilities. David straightened, recognizing the significance of this invitation. Understood. Sir, I'll depart for Arcturian Command as soon as the situation here is fully under control. As he ended the transmission, David turned to survey the bridge of the now-secured prison transport. The unconscious form of Jarshnak lay nearby, a testament to the effectiveness of human intervention in this crisis. Sergeant Carter, David called out, I'm placing you in charge of overseeing the final stages of Nova Penitentiary stabilization. I trust you to handle things here. Carter nodded, his expression a mix of surprise and willpower. Yes, sir, I won't let you down. David gathered his thoughts as he prepared to leave for the crucial meeting at Arcturian High Command. The events of the past few hours had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy, and he knew that the decisions made in the coming days would have far-reaching consequences. As he made his way to the shuttle bay, David couldn't shake the feeling that while they had won significant battles today, the war for galactic stability was not nearly finished. The revelations about the GLF's broader plans loomed large in his mind, a shadowy threat that would require all of humanity's ingenuity and adaptability to counter. The shuttle's engines hummed to life as David strapped himself in, as the small craft lifted off, carrying him towards what promised to be a pivotal moment in human-Arcturian relations. He allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's role in it was about to be redefined. Redefined. The shuttle docked smoothly at the Arcturian capital spaceport, its sleek form a stark contrast to the ornate architecture surrounding it. As David disembarked, he was met by a delegation of senior Arcturian officials. Their elongated forms and iridescent skin gleamed under the artificial lighting of the spaceport's reception area. The lead official, distinguishable by his ornate robe, stepped forward. Commander Stevens, he said, his voice a melodious trill. I am High Counselor Zuayanar. Your presence here is most urgent. Please follow us. David nodded, falling into step beside the Arcturian as they moved swiftly through the spaceport's bustling corridors. The air hummed with the chatter of various species and the soft whir of anti-gravity transport pods. "The situation is grave, Commander," Ziwandar continued as they entered a private lift. "The recent events have shaken the very foundation of our galactic security protocols." The lift plunged downward, the smooth descent belying the speed at which they traveled. When the doors opened, David found himself in a vast underground complex. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, a hallmark of Arcturian design. They were led to a reinforced door, guarded by towering Kraxan warriors, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming. The door slid open silently, revealing a high-tech conference room. David's eyes were immediately drawn to the center of the room, where a massive holographic display flickered with real-time updates from prison facilities across the galaxy. Red warning indicators blinked ominously at several locations. As David took his seat at the oval table, he noticed the grim expressions on the faces of the assembled Arcturian officials. The gravity of the situation was palpable in the room's tense atmosphere. High Counselor Ziwandar called the meeting to order, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "Commander Stevens, we require a full debriefing on the events at Nova Penitentiary, Arcturus Prime, and the GLF raid." David stood, activating his personal holo projector. Detailed schematics of Nova Penitentiary appeared above the table. "The situation at Nova Penitentiary was critical," David began, his voice steady. "We faced a coordinated uprising of Deathworlder inmates, led by the Krolovar Giarshnak. Our teams employed specialized non-lethal tactics and technologies to neutralize the threat." He manipulated the hologram, showing the flow of combat through the prison's corridors. The Arcturians leaned forward, their compound eyes widening as they witnessed the efficiency of the human-led intervention. "Simultaneously," David continued, switching the display to Arcturus Prime, "we assisted Warden Kexlor in containing a breakout attempt by the Thraxian warlord Krazuke. Our strategies proved effective in maintaining control of the facility's weapon systems." The meeting progressed, with David providing a comprehensive account of the operations. He emphasized the effectiveness of human adaptability and ingenuity in managing multiple crises. As David concluded his report, a ripple of murmurs spread through the Arcturian officials. Ziwandar raised a slender hand for silence. "Commander Stevens, your actions have demonstrated the unique capabilities of humans in handling Deathworld-related security threats," Ziwandar said, his tone measured. "In light of recent events, we propose a significant restructuring of our galactic prison system." The holographic display shifted, showing a new organizational chart. At its center was a logo David had never seen before, a stylized galaxy with the letters ICA superimposed. "We propose the creation of a new human-led interstellar corrections agency," Ziwandar announced. "This agency would oversee all Deathworld-related security operations across our prison network." David's mind raced with the implications of this proposal. It represented a seismic shift in the Arcturians' approach to galactic security, placing unprecedented trust in human capabilities. Before he could respond, the conference room door slid open. Lieutenant Jack Harper strode in, his uniform bearing the marks of recent combat. Behind him, flanked by heavily armed guards, was a figure David recognized from intelligence briefings: High Counselor Zexare. The Arcturian officials recoiled in shock at the sight of their disgraced colleague. Zexare's once proud bearing was gone, replaced by a defeated slump of his shoulders. "Apologies for the interruption," Harper said, nodding to David. "We've secured High Counselor Zexare and obtained critical evidence from the GLF raid." Harper activated a data crystal, projecting its contents onto the main holographic display. Complex networks of data flowed across the screen, detailing the GLF's extensive operations. "The prison riots were just the beginning," Harper explained, his voice grim. We've uncovered a network of GLF sleeper agents embedded throughout key galactic institutions. Their plan goes far beyond simple prison breaks. The room erupted into anxious chatter. David studied the data, his trained eye picking out patterns and connections. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering, threatening the stability of the entire galactic community. Ziwayanar turned to David, his expression a mix of commitment and concern. "Commander Stevens, in light of this new information, we are granting you unprecedented authority. You are to lead a galaxy-wide operation to root out this GLF network." David nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of the responsibility being placed on his shoulders. As he prepared to respond, his comm unit chimed urgently. "Commander," Sergeant Carter's voice came through, tinged with excitement and worry. "During the cleanup at Nova Penitentiary, we've discovered something in Giarshnak's cell. It's some kind of advanced quantum communication device. Sir, this tech is way beyond anything we've seen before." David's brow furrowed as he processed this new information. The presence of such advanced technology suggested the involvement of an unknown player, one with resources and knowledge far beyond the GLF's known capabilities. "Understood, Sergeant," David replied. "Secure the device and prepare it for immediate analysis. We need to trace its origin." As David turned back to the assembled Arcturian officials, he knew that the challenges ahead were far greater than anyone had anticipated. The galaxy stood on the brink of a crisis that would test the limits of human ingenuity and interspecies cooperation. The meeting room buzzed with renewed urgency as plans were formulated and resources allocated. David found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, coordinating with Arcturian logistics officers and human military liaisons. As the strategic session reached its crescendo, a tall, willowy Arcturian approached David. His lab coat and the array of holographic instruments floating around him marked him as a scientist. "Commander Stevens," the Arcturian said, his voice a soft whisper, "I am Xandor, lead researcher in Deathworlder biology. I have something that may be of interest to your new agency." Xandor gestured, and a small, intricate device materialized in the air before them. It pulsed with a soft blue light. "This is a prototype neural inhibitor," Xandor explained, his eyes gleaming with scientific excitement. "Designed specifically for Deathworlder species. If successful, it could provide a humane and effective means of controlling violent inmates without resorting to physical force." David examined the device closely, his mind already racing with the potential applications. "Impressive work, Xandor. I'd like to authorize immediate field testing at select facilities. Can you assemble a team to refine this technology?" Xandor nodded eagerly. "Of course, Commander. I'll begin preparations at once." As the meeting drew to a close, David found himself standing before a window overlooking the gleaming spires of the Arcturian capital. The weight of his new responsibilities settled on his shoulders, but with it came a sense of purpose. A sleek, high-speed diplomatic vessel awaited him on the landing pad, its engines humming with scarcely controlled power. Earth was his next destination, where he would brief the human government and begin recruiting for the newly formed Interstellar Corrections Agency. As David boarded the vessel, he knew that the coming days would shape the future of galactic security. The challenges ahead were daunting, but as the ship lifted off, streaking towards the stars, David Stevens was ready to face whatever the universe had in store. Store for humanity. As the ship entered Earth's atmosphere, David's mind was already racing with plans and strategies. The vessel touched down on the gleaming landing pad of the newly constructed Interstellar Defense Headquarters in Geneva. As David descended the ramp, he was greeted by the imposing figure of General Marcus Hawthorne, his crisp uniform adorned with an array of medals that spoke of a long and distinguished career. "Commander Stevens," Hawthorne said, extending his hand, "welcome back to Earth. We have much to discuss." David shook the general's hand firmly. "Indeed we do. Sir, the situation is more complex than we initially thought." Hawthorne nodded gravely and led David through the bustling headquarters. The building hummed with activity, a testament to the urgency of the current galactic crisis. They made their way to a secure briefing room, where a panel of high-ranking officials from various nations awaited them. As David entered, the room fell silent. He could feel the weight of their expectant gazes as he took his place at the head of the table. Without preamble, he activated his hollow projector, filling the room with a detailed three-dimensional display of recent events. "Ladies and gentlemen," David began, his voice steady and authoritative, "what you're about to see represents a clear and present danger to galactic stability." For the next hour, David presented a comprehensive report on the prison riots, the GLF conspiracy, and the startling revelations about advanced technology found in the hands of Deathworlder inmates. The officials listened intently, their expressions growing more concerned with each passing minute. As David concluded his presentation, a tense silence fell over the room. It was broken by the gravelly voice of Admiral Chun, the head of Earth's Space Fleet. "Commander Stevens, your report is deeply troubling. What do you propose as our next course of action?" David didn't hesitate. "We need to establish a new agency, one with the authority and resources to address this crisis head-on. I propose the formation of the Interstellar Corrections Agency, or ICA." The room erupted into a flurry of discussions. David stood firm, answering questions and addressing concerns with calm efficiency. After hours of debate and deliberation, a consensus was reached. General Hawthorne stood, his voice cutting through the chatter. "It's decided. The Interstellar Corrections Agency will be formed, with Commander Stevens at its head. You will have full authority to recruit and train a specialized force for deployment across galactic prison facilities." As the meeting adjourned, David felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The real work was about to begin. Over the next few days, David threw himself into the task of building the ICA from the ground up. He scoured personnel files, conducted interviews, and designed training programs. The headquarters buzzed with activity as new recruits began to arrive. In the midst of this whirlwind of activity, David's comm unit chimed with an urgent message. It was Sergeant Carter, his voice tight with tension. "Commander, we've completed the initial analysis of that quantum communication device from Giarshnak's cell. Sir, you're not going to believe this." David listened intently as Carter explained their findings. The device's technology was far beyond anything they had encountered before, traced to a reclusive and highly advanced species known as the Zinthari. The Zinthari? David's brow furrowed. They've always maintained neutrality in galactic affairs. If they're involved with the GLF. He didn't need to finish the thought. The implications were clear and deeply troubling. David immediately ordered a security upgrade for all ICA communication systems. He also initiated a covert intelligence gathering operation, tasking a select team with learning everything they could about the Zinthari and their potential motivations. As these new developments unfolded, David received a report from Xandor on the field testing of the neural inhibitors. The results were promising, showing a significant reduction in violent incidents among Deathworlder inmates. However, a small percentage of subjects displayed unexpected resistance, hinting at potential long-term adaptations that could pose future challenges. With the first wave of ICA operatives nearing the completion of their training, David received troubling reports of growing unrest on several Deathworlder homeworlds. The news of increased human involvement in galactic security had sparked debates about sovereignty and self-perseverance among some species. Recognizing the need for a more nuanced approach, David proposed the creation of a Deathworlder liaison office within the ICA. He appointed Lena, the Arcturian administrator who had proven her worth during the Arcturus Prime crisis, as its head. As David watched the first teams of ICA operatives deploy to key prison facilities across the galaxy, he felt a mix of pride and apprehension. The success of the ICA could determine the future of human-Deathworlder relations and the stability of the entire galactic community. His comm unit chimed again. It was Lieutenant Harper, his voice tight with urgency. "Commander, we've uncovered something big. You need to see this immediately." David's hand tightened on the comm unit. As he hurried to meet Harper, he knew that whatever lay ahead would test the limits of the fledgling ICA and push the boundaries of human involvement in galactic affairs to unprecedented levels. David's hand tightened on the comm unit as he hurried to meet Harper, his mind racing with possibilities. As he entered the secure briefing room, Harper's face was grim, illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. "Commander, we've intercepted a distress call from our outpost on Xyrax 4, Harper said, activating a holographic projection of the planet. "Captain Ethan Reeves reports a sudden surge in local unrest following the implementation of our new security protocols." David's brow furrowed as he studied the holographic representation of the Deathworlder planet. Xyrax 4, a world of towering purple mountains and sprawling crimson forests, had been one of the first to receive an ICA presence. "What's the situation on the ground?" David asked, his eyes scanning the data scrolling alongside the planet's image. Harper manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the ICA outpost. Crowds of Xyraxian civilians have gathered outside the prison facility. They're demanding the release of their incarcerated kin and the withdrawal of human personnel. "The situation is volatile, sir." David's mind raced through potential scenarios, each more concerning than the last. He knew that mishandling this situation could undo months of careful diplomacy and fuel anti-human sentiment across Deathworlder worlds. "We need to defuse this situation before it escalates," David said, his voice firm. "Contact Lena immediately. I want her to lead a specialized diplomatic team to Xyrax 4. As Harper relayed the orders, David turned his attention to a secondary display showing the latest data from the neural inhibitor field tests. The results were promising, but a nagging concern tugged at the back of his mind. His thoughts were interrupted as Lena's holographic form materialized in the room. The Arcturian's willowy frame seemed to shimmer slightly in the projection. "Commander Stevens," Lena said, her melodious voice tinged with concern. "I've been briefed on the situation on Xyrax 4. I'm ready to depart immediately." David nodded, his expression grave. "Good. Your mission is to negotiate with the Xyraxian leaders and address their concerns about our involvement. We need to maintain our presence there, but we can't afford to alienate the local population." Lena's large, expressive eyes blinked in understanding. "I'll do my best to find a diplomatic solution, Commander. My team and I will depart within the hour." As Lena's hologram faded, David turned back to Harper. "What else do you have for me, Lieutenant?" Harper's expression tightened. "Sir, our investigation into the GLF network has uncovered something troubling." He activated another holographic display, this one showing a complex web of connections and data points. "We've found evidence of a high-ranking Xyntheri operative embedded within the Arcturian Galactic Council." David's eyes widened. The implications of this revelation were staggering. If the Xyntheri had infiltrated the highest levels of galactic governance, the entire foundation of interstellar cooperation could be at risk. "We need to act on this immediately," David said, his voice low and intense. "But we can't risk alerting the wider council. Assemble a small team of our most experienced operatives. We'll need to run a covert operation to identify and neutralize this agent." Harper nodded, already pulling up personnel files. "I recommend Sergeant Marcus Carter to lead the team. Sir's experience in covert ops is unmatched." As David reviewed the proposed team members, his comm unit chimed again. It was Xandor, the Arcturian scientist overseeing the neural inhibitor project. "Commander," Xandor's soft voice came through, tinged with excitement and worry. "We've made a breakthrough with the inhibitors, but there's a complication you need to be aware of." David listened intently as Xandor explained. The inhibitors were proving highly effective for the majority of Deathworlder inmates, but a small yet significant number were showing signs of neural adaptation. We're working on a more advanced version, Zandor continued, one that incorporates adaptive algorithms and real-time physiological monitoring. But we'll need additional resources to accelerate development. David weighed the options quickly. The neural inhibitors were a crucial component of the ICA strategy for maintaining order in Deathworlder prisons. They couldn't afford setbacks in this area. You'll have whatever you need, Zandor, David said firmly. Keep me updated on your progress. As he ended the call, David's mind whirled with the multitude of challenges facing the ICA. The situation on Zyrax 4, the Xynthari infiltration, the evolving Deathworlder physiology. Each problem alone would be daunting. Together, they threatened to overwhelm the fledgling agency. But David Stevens had not come this far to be deterred. He turned to Harper, his mind focused. Lieutenant, I want hourly updates on the Zyrax 4 situation, and get Sergeant Carter in here immediately. We need to plan this covert operation down to the last detail. As Harper hurried to carry out his orders, David moved to the window overlooking the ICA headquarters. Below, he could see the first wave of newly trained operatives preparing for deployment. The fate of human involvement in galactic affairs rested on their shoulders, and on the decisions David would make in the coming hours. The comm unit on his wrist blinked, signaling an incoming transmission from Zyrax 4. David took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever news awaited him. As he reached to accept the call, he knew that the next few moments could shape the future of the entire galaxy. David took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. As he accepted the incoming transmission, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing Captain Ethan Reeves' tense face. Commander Stevens, the situation here is deteriorating rapidly, Reeves reported, his voice tight with urgency. The crowds outside the facility have grown larger and more aggressive. They're demanding immediate release of all Zyraxian inmates and complete withdrawal of ICA personnel. David's mind raced, analyzing the information and formulating a strategy. Captain, hold your position and maintain defensive protocols. I'm implementing a two-pronged approach to address this crisis. He turned to Lieutenant Harper, who stood at attention nearby. Lieutenant, I need you to assemble a covert infiltration team immediately. Contact Captain Alexei Volkov and brief him on the situation. He'll lead the operation to secure the planetary defense installation. Harper nodded sharply and moved to carry out the orders. David then opened a secure channel to Lena, who was already en route to Zyrax 4 with her diplomatic team. Lena, the situation has escalated. I need you to organize a public forum with Zyraxian community leaders as soon as you arrive. Address their concerns head-on and emphasize our commitment to fair treatment and galactic cooperation. Understood, Commander, Lena replied, her holographic form shimmering slightly. We'll do our best to defuse tensions through dialogue. As David coordinated the response to the Zyrax 4 crisis, he received an alert from Sergeant Marcus Carter's team. They had made significant progress in their investigation of the Xynthari operative within the Arcturian Galactic Council. Commander, Carter's voice came through the comm, we've narrowed down our list of suspects to 3 high-ranking council members. We're initiating surveillance now. Excellent work, Sergeant, David replied. Keep me updated on any developments. The ICA headquarters buzzed with activity as operatives prepared for deployment and analysts pored over incoming data. Amid the controlled chaos, Zandor's hologram appeared before David. Commander, I have promising news, the Arcturian scientist announced, his eyes bright with excitement. We've developed a prototype neural inhibitor with a biofeedback mechanism. Initial simulations show it adapting effectively to Deathworlder physiological changes. David felt a glimmer of hope at this development. That's excellent news, Zandor. How soon can we begin field testing? We'll need at least a week to finalize the prototype and run additional simulations, Zandor replied. But I'm confident this will address the adaptation issues we've encountered. As David processed this information, a priority alert flashed across his display. It was from Captain Volkov's team on Zyrax 4. He quickly opened the encrypted channel. "Commander," Volkov's gruff voice came through, tinged with satisfaction. "Mission accomplished. We've secured the planetary defense installation and apprehended the radicalized Zyraxians. Minimal force used, no casualties." David felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Well done, Captain. What's the status of the facility?" "We've disabled the weapon systems and are securing evidence," Volkov reported. "Sir, we've found materials linking this group to the GLF. It appears to be part of a coordinated effort." This confirmation of GLF involvement deepened David's concern. He was about to respond when another urgent message came through, this time from Lieutenant Harper. "Commander," Harper's voice was filled with nearly unleashed excitement. "We've made a critical discovery. There's a quantum entanglement device hidden in the council chambers. It's far beyond any technology we've seen before." David's mind raced with the implications. This confirms Xynthari involvement at the highest levels. "Well done, Lieutenant. Secure all evidence and prepare a full report." As he processed these rapid developments, David's comm unit chimed once more. The message that appeared made his heart race. "Commander Stevens, my name is Zalrin. I am a Xynthari defector with critical information about my species' involvement with the GLF. Request immediate secure meeting with ICA leadership." David read the message twice, his mind whirling with possibilities. This could be the breakthrough they needed, or a carefully laid trap. Either way, he knew he had to act. "Lieutenant Harper," he called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Prepare a secure transport and assemble a small team. We're meeting with a Xynthari defector." As preparations began for the high-stakes meeting, reports flooded in of growing Deathworlder unrest across multiple sectors. The ICA found itself stretched thin, trying to maintain order on multiple fronts while pursuing the deeper conspiracy. David boarded the high-security transport vessel, his mind filled with the weight of the challenges ahead. As the ship's engines hummed to life, he couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting with Zalrin would be a turning point, for better or worse. The transport lifted off, leaving the ICA headquarters behind. David stood at the viewport, watching as the Earth grew smaller beneath them. Whatever lay ahead, he knew that the fate of human involvement in galactic affairs, and perhaps the stability of the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. Balance hung in the balance. As the transport ship accelerated away from Earth, David turned his attention to the mission ahead. The journey to the rendezvous point was tense, filled with preparation and strategic planning. David briefed his team on the potential risks and the importance of the information Zalrin might provide. As they approached the decommissioned space station orbiting a massive gas giant, David felt a familiar mix of anticipation and wariness. "Lieutenant Harper, conduct a thorough sweep of the station as soon as we dock," David ordered as their vessel maneuvered towards the aging structure. "Yes, sir," Harper replied, his hand resting on his sidearm. The docking procedure went smoothly, and the team disembarked with practiced efficiency. Harper led two operatives in a swift but meticulous search of the immediate area, while David, Zandor, and the remaining team members secured their transport. "All clear, Commander," Harper reported after several tense minutes. "No signs of surveillance or immediate threats detected." David nodded, his eyes scanning the dimly lit corridor. "Good. Let's proceed to the central conference room. Stay alert." The team moved through the station's winding passageways, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. As they approached the conference room, David felt a prickle of unease at the base of his skull. He pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the task at hand. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a tall, slender figure waiting inside. Zaurin's iridescent skin seemed to shimmer in the low light, and his large, multifaceted eyes darted nervously between the human delegates. "Commander Stevens," Zaurin said, his voice a melodious whisper, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I understand the risk you've taken in coming here." David stepped forward, his posture alert but not overtly aggressive. "We appreciate your willingness to share information, Zaurin. Please, tell us what you know." As the team settled into defensive positions around the room, Zaurin began his revelation. He spoke of the Zintheri Conclave, a secretive leadership caste that had manipulated galactic affairs for centuries. Their ultimate goal, he explained, was to create chaos and instability, pitting Deathworlders against other species. The Conclave provided the GLF with advanced technology, Zaurin continued, his voice growing more urgent. Quantum communication devices, neural interfaces, all designed to incite Deathworlder uprisings across the galaxy. David's mind raced as he processed the implications. And the end game? What does the Conclave hope to achieve? Zaurin's multifaceted eyes seemed to darken. They aimed to position themselves as peacekeepers, stepping in to restore order after they've engineered widespread chaos. The Zintheri would emerge as the dominant power, controlling the galaxy from the shadows. Before David could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Harper's comm unit crackled to life, the voice of their transport's pilot cutting through the noise. "Commander, a Zintheri warship just entered the system. They're on an intercept course." David's training kicked in immediately. "Harper, download everything from Zaurin's data storage. Zandor, assist him. The rest of you, secure our exit route back to the transport." As the team sprang into action, David turned to Zaurin. "You're coming with us. Your knowledge is too valuable to leave behind." They rushed through the station's corridors, the wail of alarms growing more insistent with each passing moment. As they rounded a corner, plasma bolts sizzled past, impacting the wall behind them. "Contact!" shouted one of the ICA operatives, returning fire. The corridor erupted into chaos as David's team engaged the Zintheri assault troops. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds crisscrossed the air, filling the space with acrid smoke and the smell of ozone. David took cover behind a bulkhead, assessing the situation. The Zintheri troops advanced with ruthless efficiency, their armor deflecting most of the ICA team's fire. He noticed, however, that well-placed shots to the joints of their armor seemed to have an effect. "Zandor," David called out over the din of battle. "Any insights on their physiology? Weak points?" The Arcturian scientist, crouched behind a fallen piece of equipment, quickly analyzed the Zintheri movements. Their ocular structure is highly sensitive to rapid light changes, and there's a nerve cluster at the base of their neck, just above the armor line. David relayed this information to his team, watching with grim satisfaction as their next volley of fire proved far more effective. The Zintheri advance faltered, buying them precious time. "Move!" David ordered, leading the charge towards the docking bay. They fought their way through the station, using every trick and tactic at their disposal. David's Deathworlder combat experience proved invaluable, his quick reflexes and strategic thinking keeping them one step ahead of their pursuers. As they neared the docking bay, Harper's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, the transport is ready for immediate departure. They've activated the stealth systems." David nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "Good. Get Zandor and Zaurin on board. We'll provide covering fire." The docking bay door slid open, revealing their transport vessel humming with nearly unleashed energy. David and Harper took up defensive positions, laying down suppressing fire as the others raced towards the ship. Just as victory seemed within reach, a new group of Zintheri troops entered the bay. At their head stood a tall, imposing figure whose armor bore intricate markings. Zaurin's eyes widened in recognition and fear. "Vexlor," he whispered, a member of the Conclave. Vexlor's voice boomed across the docking bay, amplified by his armor systems. Return the traitor Zaurin to us, humans, or we will destroy this entire station. David's mind raced, weighing their options in a fraction of a second. The information they'd gathered was too valuable to risk. He made his decision. Harper, get on that transport now. Take Xandor and Zaurin. Tell them to depart immediately. But Sir Dash, Harper began to protest. That's an order, Lieutenant. David cut him off, his voice leaving no room for argument. The ICA needs that intelligence. We'll hold them off and find another way out. Harper hesitated for a split second before nodding sharply. He raced towards the transport, shouting orders as he went. David watched as the ship's hatch sealed shut, its engines flaring to life. He turned back to face Vexlor and his elite guards, raising his weapon. All right, you Zintheri bastards, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Let's see what you've got. As the transport vessel disappeared into the darkness of space, David and his small team engaged Vexlor's forces in a desperate battle. The future of the stars might well hinge on their ability to survive long enough for the invaluable intelligence to reach the ICA. With that thought driving him, David threw himself into the fight, determined to hold out against impossible odds. Odds. The air crackled with energy as plasma bolts flew past, leaving scorch marks on the station's metallic walls. David dove behind a fallen bulkhead, his heart pounding as he assessed their dire situation. Rodriguez, Carter, he shouted over the din of battle. Flank left and right. Harper, with me. The ICA operatives moved with practiced precision, using the station's winding corridors to their advantage. David's mind raced, searching for a way to turn the tide against their technologically superior foes. As they retreated deeper into the station, an idea struck him. Harper, he called out, ducking to avoid a barrage of enemy fire. We need to reach the auxiliary control room. If we can initiate a controlled decompression, we might be able to force them into a more vulnerable position. Harper nodded, understanding immediately. I'll cover you, Sir Rodriguez. He shouted into his comm, make your way to the auxiliary control room. We need you to start a controlled decompression sequence. Copy that, Lieutenant. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. David and Harper provided covering fire as Rodriguez broke away from the group, disappearing down a side corridor. The remaining team members continued their hit-and-run tactics, using their knowledge of close-quarters combat to slowly whittle down the Zintheri forces. Vexlor's voice boomed through the station, amplified by his armor systems. Your resistance is futile, humans. Surrender now, and I may show mercy. David gritted his teeth, refusing to give in to the aliens' taunts. He signaled to Harper and Carter, and they launched a coordinated assault on a group of Zintheri guards. Their combined fire overwhelmed the aliens' shields, dropping two of them in quick succession. Suddenly, a violent shudder ran through the station. Warning klaxons blared as the atmospheric pressure began to drop in specific sections. Rodriguez had succeeded in initiating the decompression sequence. The effect on the Zintheri forces was immediate and chaotic. Their orderly advance dissolved into confusion as they scrambled to regroup and seal their armor against a vacuum. David seized the opportunity, leading his team in a daring push towards the communication hub. This way, he shouted, gesturing towards a sealed airlock. They piled through, sealing it behind them just as the corridor beyond emptied of air. Inside the communication hub, Harper quickly set to work establishing a secure connection with ICA headquarters. David kept watch at the door, knowing their respite would be short-lived. Commander, Harper called out, I've got a link to HQ. They're dispatching a rescue vessel now. David nodded grimly. Tell them to hurry. I don't know how long we can hold out. No sooner had the words left his mouth than the airlock began to glow red-hot. Vexlor's forces had regrouped and were cutting their way through. "Positions," David ordered, taking cover behind a console. Carter and Harper flanked him, weapons trained on the door. With a thunderous boom, the airlock burst open. Vexlor himself stepped through, encased in an advanced battle suit that crackled with energy. His multifaceted eyes fixed on David, narrowing with cold fury. "I warned you, human," Vexlor said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Now, you will witness the true power of the Zinthari." Energy weapons materialized from Vexlor's armor, far beyond anything David had seen before. The human commander realized with a sinking feeling that they were outmatched. "Fall back," he shouted, laying down suppressing fire as his team retreated deeper into the station. They found themselves pushed towards the reactor core, the hum of its containment field growing louder with each step. David's mind raced, searching for a way out of their increasingly desperate situation. Suddenly, the station around them came to life. Emergency force fields sprang into existence, separating the human and Zinthari forces. A holographic message flickered to life, revealing the station's true nature as a secret human research facility. David's eyes widened as he processed this new information. "Harper," he said, a plan forming in his mind. "Access the station's database. Look for anything on Zinthari technology that could give us an edge." As Harper set to work, David and Carter prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Vexlor. The force fields wouldn't hold forever, and they needed every advantage they could get. "Sir," Harper called out, excitement in his voice, "I found schematics for a prototype weapon. It's designed to disrupt Zinthari energy shields." David felt a surge of hope. "Can we build it?" Harper nodded, already gathering components. "If we cannibalize some of the station's systems, we might just pull it off." They worked feverishly, aware of the ominous sound of Vexlor's forces burning through the force fields. David's hands moved with practiced efficiency, assembling the makeshift disruptor as Harper fed him instructions. The final force field fell just as they completed the device. Vexlor strode through the opening, his battle suit humming with power. "Your tricks end here, humans," the Zinthari commander growled. David raised the disruptor, praying it would work. "I wouldn't bet on that," he replied, and activated the device. A field of crackling energy enveloped Vexlor, causing his shields to fluctuate and fail. The Zinthari commander stumbled, momentarily vulnerable. "Now!" David shouted, leading the charge against their formidable foe. The battle that ensued was unlike anything David had experienced before. Despite the failure of his shields, Vexlor's advanced armor still gave him a significant advantage. The humans relied on their teamwork and adaptability, coordinating their attacks to exploit any weakness they could find. As they fought, the station shook violently. Through the viewport, David caught a glimpse of the ICA rescue vessel engaging the Zinthari warship in orbit. Help had arrived, but the battle was just the beginning. Vexlor, realizing he was now cut off from reinforcements, fought with increased desperation. His energy weapons left scorch marks on the walls and floor, narrowly missing the nimble humans as they ducked and weaved. David felt his muscles burning with exertion, but he pushed through the pain. They had Vexlor on the defensive now, and he wasn't about to let this opportunity slip away. With a silent signal to Harper and Carter, they launched a coordinated assault on the Zinthari commander. Harper targeted Vexlor's legs with precise shots, while Carter provided covering fire. David, seizing the moment, charged forward with the disruptor, aiming to disable the aliens' remaining armor systems. Vexlor roared in defiance, lashing out with a powerful blow that sent David flying across the room. The commander hit the wall hard, his vision blurring from the impact. But even as he struggled to regain his footing, he saw Carter and Harper pressing their advantage. The tide of battle had turned. Vexlor, once seemingly invincible, now found himself cornered and outnumbered. David pushed himself to his feet, gripping the disruptor tightly as he advanced on the weakened Xynthari commander. "It's over, Vexlor," David said, his voice steady despite his labored breathing. "Surrender now." Vexlor's multifaceted eyes darted between the three humans, calculating his odds. For a moment, David thought the alien might make a final, desperate attack. But then, with a hiss of escaping air, Vexlor's battle suit began to power down. "You've won this battle, humans," Vexlor said, his voice filled with a mixture of anger and grudging respect. "But you have no idea of the forces you're truly facing." As David moved to secure their high-ranking prisoner, his mind raced with the implications of their victory. The capture of a Xynthari commander, combined with the intelligence from Zaurin and the hidden research facility, could change everything. But as he looked at Vexlor's inscrutable alien features, David couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. The ICA rescue vessel docked with the station, and David could hear the sounds of friendly forces securing the area. As he prepared to hand Vexlor over to the newly arrived ICA personnel, David knew that the real work was just beginning. The secrets they had uncovered here could reshape their understanding of the entire Deathworlder situation, and potentially the destiny of the universe itself. The capture of Vexlor marked a turning point, but David knew the battle was a long way to go. As the ICA rescue vessel secured its docking clamps, he turned to his team. "Harper, Carter, we need to move fast. Vexlock won't stay down for long." They nodded, understanding the urgency. David approached the fallen Xynthari commander, who was already stirring, his multifaceted eyes refocusing with alien intensity. Suddenly, Vexlor's battle suit hummed to life, hidden weapons emerging from its surface. Energy blasts erupted around them, forcing the team to dive for cover. "Harper, suppressing fire," David shouted, ducking behind a control panel. "Carter with me." Harper unleashed a barrage from his rifle, keeping Vexlor pinned down. David caught Carter's eye and signaled their next move. They split up, circling around to flank the Xynthari commander. Vexlor, fixated on Harper's assault, failed to notice the approaching threat. David and Carter struck simultaneously, tackling the alien with all their strength. The impact sent them crashing to the floor in a tangle of limbs and armor. David grappled with Vexlor's upper body, struggling against the alien's superior strength. He felt the Xynthari's arm swinging towards his head and barely managed to duck in time. "Carter, the helmet," David yelled, straining to keep Vexlor's arms pinned. Carter, locked in his own struggle with the alien's lower body, reached up and grabbed the edge of Vexlor's helmet. With a grunt of effort, he wrenched it free. Exposed to the station's atmosphere, Vexlor let out a hissing gasp. His momentary disorientation gave David the opening he needed. He slammed his forehead into the Xynthari's face, feeling a satisfying crunch. Vexlor's strength faltered, and David seized the advantage. Harper now. Harper rushed forward, a set of specialized restraints in hand. With practiced efficiency, he secured Vexlor's arms and legs, the devices emitting a low-pitched hum as they activated. David stepped back, breathing heavily. "Nice work, team." The sound of approaching footsteps made them snap to attention, weapons raised. A squad of heavily armed operatives burst into the room, led by a familiar face. "Area secure, Commander," Sergeant Marcus Carter reported, lowering his weapon. "We've neutralized the remaining Xynthari resistance." David nodded, relief washing over him. "Good work, Sergeant. We need to evacuate immediately. There's no telling what fail-safes the Xynthari might have in place." As the ICA team secured Vexlor and gathered crucial data from the station systems, David's mind raced with the implications of their discovery. The hidden research facility, Vexlor's capture, the intelligence from Zaurin, it all painted a picture far more complex and dangerous than they'd initially believed. "Sir," Harper called out, his eyes fixed on a console display. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple Xanthari warships entering the system. David's teeth clenched. Time to go. Everyone on the rescue vessel, now. They boarded swiftly, Vexlor secured in a specially designed holding cell. As the ship disengaged from the station, David felt a subtle shift as its stealth systems activated. Plot a series of random hyperspace jumps, he ordered the pilot. We can't risk leading them back to HQ. As they made their escape, evading the incoming Xanthari fleet, David received an incoming transmission. Xandor's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of excitement and concern. Commander, I've made a breakthrough in analyzing the Xanthari data, the Arcturian scientist reported. They've been manipulating Deathworlder genetics on a massive scale. It explains the increasing aggression we've been seeing across various species. David's mind reeled at the implications. Xandor, I want you to assemble a specialized research team immediately. We need countermeasures, and we need to find a way to reverse what they've done. As the rescue vessel continued its evasive course back to ICA headquarters, David gathered his core team. Harper, Carter, and Xandor joined him in a secure briefing room. What we've uncovered goes far beyond the prison system, David began, his voice grave. The Xanthari have been manipulating entire populations of Deathworlders. We need to extract every piece of information we can from Vexlor and develop a strategy to counter their operations. Harper leaned forward, his expression determined. Where do we start, sir? David activated a holographic display, showing a map of known Deathworlder worlds. We start by deploying teams to key planets. We need to identify and neutralize Xanthari influence before they can cause any more damage. As they delved into planning their next moves, David couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something even bigger. The capture of Vexlor was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, unraveling centuries of Xanthari interference and preventing the destabilization of the entire galactic community. With a deep breath, David focused on the task at hand. They had a Xanthari commander to interrogate, a galaxy to protect, and an enemy that had operated from the shadows for far too long to bring into the light. Light! The rescue vessel docked smoothly at ICA headquarters, its hull still humming from the evasive maneuvers performed during their escape. As the team disembarked, David turned to Harper and Carter. Secure Vexlor in the specially designed holding facility, he ordered. I want round-the-clock surveillance and the most advanced containment protocols we have. Harper nodded, his expression grim. Understood. Sir, we'll make sure he doesn't have any tricks up his sleeve. As his team escorted the Xanthari commander away, David made his way to the command center. General Marcus Hawthorne was waiting for him, his weathered face creased with concern. Commander Stevens, Hawthorne greeted him. I've read your preliminary report. This is far worse than we imagined. David nodded, his expression resolute. Sir, we need to begin interrogation immediately. Every moment we delay gives the Xanthari more time to cover their tracks. Agreed, Hawthorne said. I've already authorized the use of our most advanced interrogation facilities. Lieutenant Harper will lead the questioning. Over the next several hours, David watched from behind a one-way mirror as Harper skillfully probed Vexlor for information. The Xanthari commander proved to be a formidable opponent, his alien physiology and training allowing him to resist many of their usual techniques. You waste your time, human, Vexlor hissed, his multifaceted eyes gleaming defiantly. The Conclave's plans are beyond your comprehension. Harper leaned forward, his voice calm but intense. We know about the genetic manipulation, Vexlor. We know you've been altering Deathworlder populations for centuries. Why? A flicker of surprise crossed Vexlor's alien features, quickly masked. David tensed, recognizing the telling reaction. They were on the right track. As the interrogation continued, David received an urgent message from Xandor. He hurried to the research lab, where the Arcturian scientist was poring over holographic displays filled with complex genetic data. "Commander," Xandor said, his voice trembling with excitement and fear, "we've made a breakthrough. The Xinthari haven't just been manipulating individual Deathworlders. They've been altering entire species on a genetic level, enhancing aggression and violent tendencies over generations." David's mind raced with the implications. That explains the increasing difficulty in controlling Deathworlder inmates, the rapid adaptations we've been seeing. Xandor nodded vigorously. "Exactly. But it's more than that. These changes have been introduced so gradually, so subtly, that they've become an integral part of Deathworlder biology. Reversing them won't be easy." As they discussed the ramifications of this discovery, Sergeant Carter burst into the lab, his face flushed with urgency. "Sir," he said, saluting quickly, "I've uncovered something in the data from the research station. There's evidence of a vast network of Xinthari sleeper agents embedded across multiple Deathworlder worlds." David's blood ran cold. "How many?" Carter shook his head. "Dozens, maybe hundreds. They've altered themselves to blend in with local populations, influencing societal development and exacerbating conflicts between species." Without hesitation, David activated his comm link. "This is Commander Stevens. I need strike teams prepped and ready for immediate deployment to all major Deathworlder planets. Priority is locating and neutralizing Xinthari sleeper agents." As the ICA mobilized for this unprecedented operation, David returned to the interrogation room. Harper had made progress, but Vexlor was still holding out on crucial information. "We know about your sleeper agents," David said, stepping into the room. "We're shutting them down as we speak." Vexlor's composure cracked, his alien features contorting with rage and disbelief. "Impossible. You couldn't have Dash." "We have," David interrupted. "It's over, Vexlor. The only question now is whether you want to be on the right side of history." For a long moment, the Xinthari commander stared at David, his alien mind clearly calculating odds and outcomes. Then, with a sound like escaping steam, he slumped in his restraints. "The Conclave's goal was never mere control," Vexlor said, his voice low and defeated. "We aim to create a galactic-scale conflict between Deathworlders and the rest of the galactic community. The chaos would allow us to step in as peacekeepers, establishing Xinthari dominance while eliminating potential rivals." David listened intently as Vexlor outlined the full scope of the Conclave's plans. As the Xinthari commander spoke, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "Sir!" An officer burst into the room. Long-range sensors have detected a large Xinthari fleet entering the system. "They're on an attack vector." David's mind raced. The Conclave must have realized their plans had been exposed. This was a desperate attempt to silence the ICA and prevent further leaks. "Activate all defense protocols," David ordered. "Evacuate non-essential personnel and secure all sensitive data. And get Vexlor to a more secure location." As the ICA headquarters erupted into controlled chaos, David's comm link chimed with an incoming transmission. To his surprise, it was from a group of Deathworlder leaders, including representatives from Xyrax 4. "Commander Stevens," the Xyraxian diplomat said, her features tense with urgency. "We have crucial information about a hidden Xinthari weakness. We request an immediate audience." David hesitated, acutely aware of the Xinthari fleet bearing down on them. Could this be a trap, or was it the key to turning the tide of the coming battle? David's mind raced, weighing the potential risks against the urgent need for information that could turn the tide of the impending conflict. "Patch them through," he ordered, his voice firm with grit. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the faces of 3 distinct Deathworlder representatives. Graxtor, a towering Xyraxian with iridescent scales and piercing yellow eyes, dominated the center of the image. Flanking him were Calvez, a reptilian strategist from Nyx, 9 with intricate patterns etched into his leathery skin, and Dormac, a multi-limbed tactician from Graviton Prime, whose dense musculature spoke of his high-gravity origins. "Commander Stevens," Graxtor began, his voice a low rumble, "we have intelligence that may prove crucial in the coming battle." David leaned forward, his attention fully captured. "Go on." Calvez stepped forward, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke. "Our scientists have been covertly studying the Xyntheri for decades. They've uncovered a critical weakness in their technology." Dormac's multiple limbs moved in complex patterns as he added, "Their advanced systems rely on a rare element called xenium. It's highly sensitive to specific radiation frequencies." David's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "If we can exploit this vulnerability, we could neutralize their superior weaponry," Graxtor finished, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Without hesitation, David activated his comm link. "Xandor, I need you and your team to analyze this new data immediately. We may have found our ace in the hole." As Xandor's team began their frantic work, David turned back to the Deathworlder representatives. "We're grateful for this information, but we'll need more than intelligence to survive this assault. I propose a joint operation between the ICA and your forces." The Deathworlders exchanged glances, a moment of silent communication passing between them. Graxtor nodded, his massive form seeming to fill the holographic display. "We agree, Commander. The Xyntheri have manipulated our kind for too long. It's time we struck back." David felt a surge of hope as he watched Deathworlder reinforcements begin to arrive in the system. Xeraxian battlecruisers, their hulls gleaming with bioluminescent patterns, took up flanking positions. Sleek, almost invisible ships from Nyx, 9 slipped into strategic locations, ready for hit-and-run attacks. The imposing silhouettes of Graviton Prime's gravity manipulators loomed at the edges of the defensive formation. In the heart of the ICA headquarters, engineers worked feverishly to prototype a radiation emitter based on the Deathworlder specifications. David watched as the first units were rushed to the front-line ships, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. "Sir," Lieutenant Harper's voice crackled over the comm. "Long-range scanners have picked up the Xyntheri fleet. They're entering the system now." David took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He opened a channel to the entire combined fleet. "All ships, this is Commander Stevens. We stand at a pivotal moment in galactic history. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for the future of all species the Xyntheri have sought to control. Remember your training, trust in each other, and may fortune favor the bold." As he closed the channel, David turned to see Harper approaching with a grim expression. "Sir, we've detected a separate Xyntheri strike force heading directly for the planet. They appear to be using older tech. The Xenium disruptors won't work on them." David's mind raced, quickly assessing the new threat. "They're after the headquarters. Harper, coordinate with planetary defenses. I'll handle things up here." As Harper rushed to carry out his orders, David watched the massive Xyntheri fleet approach on the tactical display. Their formation was tight, confident. They had no idea what awaited them. "All ships hold position," David ordered. "Wait for my signal." The tension mounted as the Xyntheri drew closer, their weapons charging, shields at full power. David's hand hovered over the control that would activate the Xenium disruptors. "Steady," he murmured, watching the range indicators tick down. "Steady." The lead Xyntheri ships entered optimal range, their weapons preparing to fire. "Now!" David shouted, slamming his hand down on the control. A wave of invisible energy pulsed out from the Allied ships. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a cascading series of lights winking out, the Xyntheri ships began to fail. Shields flickered and died, weapon systems went dark, and engines sputtered to a halt. "All ships engage," David commanded, his voice ringing with authority. "Deathworlder squadrons, execute your assigned maneuvers. ICA vessels, target those disabled ships before they can recover." The battle erupted in a frenzy of movement and weapons fire. ICA ships surged forward, their conventional weapons tearing into the defenseless Zintheri vessels. Zeraxian battlecruisers unleashed devastating broadsides, while Nyx, 9 stealth ships darted in and out of the chaos, striking at vital systems with surgical precision. As the space battle raged, David's attention was drawn back to the planet below. Harper's voice came through, tight with tension. "Commander, the Zintheri ground force is pushing through our outer defenses. We need reinforcements." David gritted his teeth, torn between the two fronts of the battle. He knew the importance of holding the ICA headquarters, but he couldn't afford to weaken their position in space. "Harper, hold them as long as you can. I'm going to try something risky," David said, his mind already formulating a plan. He opened a channel to Dormac's gravity manipulator ships. "Dormac, I need 2 of your ships to break off and head to these coordinates in low orbit. There's a Zintheri ground force we need to deal with." Dormac's reply was immediate. "Understood, Commander. We're on our way." As the massive Graviton Prime ships peeled away from the main battle, David turned his attention back to the space engagement. The Zintheri fleet was in disarray, but they were beginning to adapt. Some ships were switching to backup systems, slowly regaining power and joining the fight. "Keep up the pressure," David ordered. "Don't let them regroup." The battle continued to rage across the star system, a deadly dance of energy weapons and tactical maneuvers. David coordinated the Allied forces with precision, exploiting every advantage the Xenium disruptors provided. But even as they pressed their advantage in space, David couldn't shake the worry about the ground assault on the ICA headquarters. The fate of the entire operation, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance, and he knew the next few hours would determine everything. The fate of the entire operation, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. As David weighed his options, a priority alert flashed across his tactical display. "Commander," Lieutenant Harper's voice crackled through the comm, strained with urgency. "The Zintheri ground force has breached our outer defenses. They're advancing on the headquarters." David's mind raced, quickly assessing the dual threats in space and on the planet's surface. He knew he couldn't be in 2 places at once, but both fronts needed his expertise. "Captain Volkov," he called out, his voice firm and decisive. "You have command of the space battle. Coordinate with our Deathworlder allies, and keep pressing our advantage." "Understood, sir," Volkov replied, his tone steady despite the chaos around them. David turned to his executive officer. "Prepare a rapid response team for immediate planetary deployment. We're going groundside." Within minutes, David and his team were strapped into a series of sleek, angular craft designed for high-speed atmospheric entry. As they plummeted through the planet's atmosphere, the commander watched the Zintheri ground forces advance through his tactical visor. The alien troops moved with practiced precision, their older but still formidable weapons carving a path through the ICA's outer defenses. David gritted his teeth, knowing that every second counted. As their craft touched down just outside the ICA complex, David and his team hit the ground running. The air crackled with weapons fire, and the acrid smell of ozone filled their nostrils. "Harper, status report." David barked into his comm as he took cover behind a fallen pillar. "We've activated all internal defenses, sir," Harper replied, the sound of alarms blaring in the background. "Automated turrets are online, and we've erected energy shields at key choke points. Non-combat personnel are being evacuated to the underground bunkers." David nodded, quickly formulating a plan. "Good work. We'll funnel them into prepared kill zones. Activate Protocol Omega 3. Omega-3? But sir, that'll dash. Doit, lieutenant. We need every advantage we can get. As Harper carried out his orders, David led his team in a flanking maneuver against the advancing Zinthari. The aliens' movements became more erratic as they encountered the newly activated defenses, holographic decoys that confused their sensors and subtle gravity fluctuations that threw off their aim. David's team struck hard and fast, their experience in varied gravity environments giving them a crucial edge. They weaved through the battlefield with a fluid grace that the Zinthari struggled to match, their shots finding their marks with deadly accuracy. Inside the ICA headquarters, Xandor and his research team worked feverishly in a secure lab. Sweat beaded on the scientist's forehead as he made minute adjustments to a modified xenium disruptor. "If we can recalibrate the pulse frequency," he muttered, more to himself than his team, "we might be able to target their older tech without affecting our own systems." A thunderous explosion rocked the building, causing everyone to stumble. Xandor steadied himself against his workbench, his eyes wide with perseverance. "We're running out of time." Outside, David led a charge against a group of Zinthari that had breached the main entrance. The corridor erupted into a close-quarters firefight, energy weapons scorching the walls and filling the air with ozone. David ducked under a Zinthari energy blast, feeling the heat singe his hair. He rolled to his feet, his own weapon coming up in a smooth arc, 2 quick shots, and the alien went down. "Harper," he shouted into his comm, "we need to bottleneck them. Seal off sections 3 through 7. As Harper carried out the order, David heard the distinct whine of Zinthari disruptors powering up. He dove for cover, just as a barrage of energy bolts tore through the space he'd occupied a moment before. Suddenly, his comm crackled to life. "Commander," it was Xandor, his voice tight with excitement. "We've done it. The modified disruptor is ready. But, sir, it might affect some of our systems, too." David didn't hesitate. "Do it, Xandor. Now!" A high-pitched whine filled the air, rising in pitch until it was almost beyond human hearing. Then silence. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like dominoes falling, the Zinthari weapons began to fail. Energy rifles sputtered and died. Communication devices went dark, and the aliens' coordinated assault fell into chaos. David seized the moment. "All units, push forward. Take them down!" The human forces surged forward, overwhelming the disoriented Zinthari. David led from the front, his movements a blur as he incapacitated alien after alien with ruthless efficiency. As the last of the ground forces were subdued, David allowed himself a moment of relief. But it was short-lived. "Commander," Captain Volkov's voice came through the comm, tight with tension. "A massive Zinthari dreadnought just entered the system. Sir, it's like nothing we've ever seen before." David rushed to a nearby tactical display, his blood running cold as he saw the behemoth ship approaching their position. It dwarfed everything else in the battle, its weapons already charging. "The xenium disruptors aren't working on it, sir," Volkov reported. "Our fleet is in danger of being overwhelmed." David stared at the display, his mind racing. The ground battle was won, but this new threat could undo everything they had accomplished. He knew that the next few moments would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but potentially the fate of the entire galaxy. "Volkov, hold your position," he ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "I'm heading back up. We're not done yet." Yet, gritting his teeth, David sprinted towards a hangar bay, his mind already formulating strategies for the new threat looming above. As he boarded his command vessel, the ship's engines roared to life, propelling him back into the heat of battle. The massive Zinthari dreadnought dominated the view screen, its imposing silhouette dwarfing even the largest Allied ships. "Volkov, status report," David barked as he strapped himself into the command chair. The dreadnought's shields are holding against everything we've thrown at it, sir, Volkov replied, his voice tight with tension. Our Xenium disruptors are having no effect. David's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. The Allied fleet was scattered, desperately trying to avoid the dreadnought's devastating energy beams. All ships, regroup in formation Delta 7, he ordered. Xandor, I need you to analyze that dreadnought's energy signatures. Find out why our disruptors aren't working. As the fleet maneuvered into a defensive pattern, David opened a channel to the Deathworlder leaders. Graxtor, I need your battlecruisers to form a protective line. Calvez, take your Nix 9s and probe for weak points. Dormac, see if you can disrupt their flight path with your gravity manipulators. The Allied ships moved with practiced precision, each race's unique capabilities complementing the others. The Xeraxian battlecruisers formed a wall of steel and energy, their massive shields absorbing hits meant for the smaller vessels. Nix, 9 stealth ships darted in and out of the dreadnought's sensor range, their advanced scanners searching for any vulnerability. Dormac's voice crackled over the comm. Commander, our gravity fields are having minimal effect. Their inertial dampeners are too powerful. David watched as the Graviton Prime ship struggled to influence the dreadnought's trajectory. The massive Xentheri vessel plowed through the distorted space, barely slowing. Suddenly, Xandor's excited voice filled the bridge. Commander, I've isolated their energy signature. They're using a completely different power source. That's why the Xenium disruptors are ineffective. Before David could respond, a priority transmission from the planet's surface cut in. Commander Stevens, this is Lieutenant Harper. We've found something in the data from the research station, a Xentheri command protocol. If we can get close enough, we might be able to hack their systems. David's mind raced, quickly formulating a plan. Harper, transmit everything you have to Xandor. Volkov, I need a boarding craft prepped immediately. Outfit it with our best electronic warfare systems, and as much Xentheri shielding tech as we can cobble together. As his orders were carried out, David assembled an elite team of ICA operatives skilled in both combat and electronic warfare. He briefed them quickly, outlining the high-risk mission they were about to undertake. Our objective is to reach the Dreadnought's Central Command node and execute this override protocol, he explained, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Captain Volkov will pilot us in. Once we're aboard, we'll split into 2 teams, one to hold off their security forces, and one to make for the command center. The boarding craft launched under the cover of a massive barrage from the Xeraxian battlecruisers. David watched through the view screen as Volkov skillfully wove through the debris field, using destroyed ships and wreckage as cover. Alarms blared as the Dreadnought's point defense systems locked onto them. The craft shuddered under multiple impacts, its modified shields barely holding. Brace for impact, Volkov shouted as he made a final, desperate maneuver. The boarding craft slammed into the Dreadnought's hull near a maintenance airlock, the sound of screeching metal filling the air. David was on his feet instantly, leading the charge as they cut through the airlock. The moment they breached the hull, claxons began to wail throughout the massive ship. David quickly split his team, taking point as they began their push towards the Central Command node. The corridors of the Dreadnought were a maze of alien architecture, all sleek lines and pulsing energy conduits. They encountered resistance almost immediately, advanced battle robots and elite Xentheri guards converging on their position. David ducked under a barrage of energy fire, rolling to cover behind a bulkhead. He returned fire, his weapon set to maximum dispersion to counteract the Xentheri's personal shields. 2 guards went down, their shields overloaded. "Keep pushing forward," he shouted over the din of battle. "We can't let them bog us down." As they fought their way deeper into the ship, David could hear the sounds of intense combat echoing from behind them, the second team holding off the bulk of the Xentheri security forces. They reached a massive blast door, behind which lay the central command node. As his team worked to bypass the security systems, David received a transmission from Graxtor. "Commander, we cannot hold out much longer against this beast," the Zeraxian's gravelly voice warned. "Whatever you're planning, do it quickly." David's response was cut short as the blast door slid open, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with holographic displays and pulsing energy matrices. At its center stood a group of high-ranking Xinthari officers, their weapons already trained on the human intruders. Time seemed to slow as David assessed the situation. The fate of the battle, perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. His hand tightened on his weapon as he prepared to make his move, knowing that the next few moments would determine everything. David's hand tightened on his weapon as he assessed the situation in the cavernous command chamber. The high-ranking Xinthari officers stood with their weapons trained on the human intruders, the tension palpable in the air. Without hesitation, David signaled his team. They sprang into action, diving for cover behind the alien consoles as energy bolts sizzled past. The command center erupted into chaos, the air filled with the sharp smell of ozone and the staccato rhythm of weapons fire. "Advance and neutralize," David shouted, leading by example as he vaulted over a console, firing with precision at the nearest Xinthari officer. The team moved with practiced efficiency, their zero-gravity combat training giving them an edge in the unfamiliar environment. They weaved between holographic displays, using the pulsing energy matrices as cover while systematically taking down the Xinthari defenders. Captain Volkov, covering David's flank, called out, "Commander, we need to access the main computer." David nodded, his eyes already scanning for the central control node. He spotted it, a towering pillar of light and circuitry at the far end of the chamber. "There, push forward." As they fought their way across the command center, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Xinthari were rallying their forces, aware of the dire threat the human intruders posed. David reached the central node, his fingers flying over the alien interface as he began uploading the command override protocol. The ship's AI, recognizing the intrusion, fought back with a barrage of countermeasures and false data streams. "Volkov, fortify our position," David ordered, his brow furrowed in concentration as he engaged in a battle of wills against the artificial intelligence. The rest of the team moved swiftly, repurposing the command center's internal defenses to create a defensive perimeter. They worked with iron will, aware that every second counted as Xinthari reinforcements converge on their location. The doors to the command center burst open, admitting a wave of Xinthari soldiers. The close confines of the room turned the battle into a brutal melee. Human and alien combatants clashed in hand-to-hand combat, the air filled with grunts of exertion and the sharp crack of breaking bones. David split his attention between the ongoing hack and the fierce battle around him. He could feel the AI's defenses weakening, but it was a race against time. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he pushed harder, forcing his way through layer after layer of digital fortifications. Suddenly, the AI's defenses crumbled. David found himself with full access to the Dreadnought's core systems. A moment of triumph was quickly replaced by alarm as he realized the AI had initiated a fail-safe protocol. "It's overloading the power core," he shouted, his fingers a blur as he worked to counteract the self-destruct sequence. In a split-second decision, David rerouted power from the weapon systems to reinforce the containment fields around the power core. The Dreadnought shuddered, its massive energy weapons falling silent, but the immediate threat of destruction was averted. "Graxtor, this is Stevens," David called into his comm unit. "The Dreadnought's defenseless. Hit it with everything you've got." As the Allied fleet unleashed its full firepower on the vulnerable Dreadnought, David turned his attention to their escape. He accessed the ship's transportation system, locating a nearby hangar with functional escape pods. "Team on me," he ordered, leading the charge out of the command center. They fought their way through the chaos of the disintegrating dreadnought, the ship groaning and shuddering around them as it took hit after hit from the Allied assault. Emergency lighting bathed the corridors in an eerie red glow, adding to the surreal atmosphere. As they approached the hangar, they encountered a final obstacle. A contingent of Zintheri elite troops led by an imposing figure David recognized as Subcommander Zexcan. The two leaders locked eyes across the hangar bay, a moment of silent challenge passing between them. Then, as if by mutual agreement, they charged at each other, their forces clashing in a final, desperate battle. David ducked under Zexcan's first strike, feeling the air displacement as the alien's fist passed centimeters from his face. He countered with a swift uppercut, his enhanced strength sending the Zintheri commander staggering back. The two warriors circled each other, trading blows in a deadly dance. Around them, human and Zintheri forces battled fiercely, the fate of both sides hanging in the balance. David saw an opening and took it, sweeping Zexcan's legs out from under him. As the alien fell, David pounced, pinning him to the ground. With a series of precise strikes, he incapacitated the Zintheri subcommander. "Secure him," David ordered, already moving towards the escape pods. "He's coming with us." His team swiftly bound the unconscious Zexcan and dragged him into one of the pods. David took one last look at the chaotic hangar bay before sealing the pod's hatch. The small craft shot out of the hangar, weaving through the debris field of the space battle. David watched through the view screen as the dreadnought finally succumbed to the Allied assault, exploding in a spectacular display of light and energy. As their pod was recovered by an ICA ship, David allowed himself a moment of relief. They had won a significant victory, but as he looked at the captured Zintheri subcommander, he knew that this was just the beginning of a new phase in their conflict with the Conclave. The ICA ship accelerated away from the battlefield, carrying with it the key to potentially unraveling the Zintheri's future plans. As the adrenaline of battle began to fade, David's mind was already racing, considering the possibilities and challenges that lay ahead in their ongoing struggle against the Conclave. Zintheri Conclave. As the ship docked at the ICA headquarters, David's mind was already racing with plans for their next moves. The moment the airlock cycled open, David was greeted by the stern face of General Marcus Hawthorne, flanked by members of the Oversight Committee. Their expressions were a mix of relief and concern. "Commander Stevens," Hawthorne said, his voice gruff. "Excellent work out there, but I'm afraid we don't have time for a victory lap. We need to debrief immediately." David nodded, his face set in relentless drive. "Understood, sir, but first, we need to secure our guest." At David's signal, his team emerged from the ship, half carrying the still unconscious form of Subcommander Zexcan. The Oversight Committee members visibly recoiled at the sight of the imposing Zintheri. "Get him to the high-security wing," David ordered. "I want a full containment protocol in place. Energy fields, gravity modulators, the works. And get Lieutenant Harper down there ASAP. He's leading the interrogation." As Zexcan was whisked away, David turned back to Hawthorne. "Sir, I'd like to convene a strategy meeting with my core team as soon as possible. We've got intel from the Dreadnought that could change the course of this war." Hawthorne's eyebrows raised slightly. "Understood, Commander. Use the war room on Sublevel 3. I'll have the Oversight Committee there in 15 minutes. David wasted no time. He quickly assembled his team. Zandor, Sergeant Marcus Carter, and their Deathworlder allies Graxtor, Calvez, and Dormac. They gathered around the holographic display in the war room, tension palpable in the air. "All right, people," David began, activating the display. "Here's what we pulled from the Dreadnought's databanks." The hologram flickered to life, showing a galactic map dotted with pulsing red points. These are hidden Zintheri bases, spread throughout the galaxy. Intel suggests they're the source of the genetic manipulation tech they've been using on Deathworlder populations. Graxtor growled, his massive frame tensing at the revelation. So this is how they've been controlling our people for generations. David nodded grimly. Exactly. And that's why we're going to hit them hard. I'm authorizing the formation of strike teams, a mix of ICA operatives and Deathworlder volunteers. Our first target is here, he said, zooming in on a remote moon in the Epsilon Eridani system. As the team discussed logistics for the strike missions, Xandor cleared his throat. Commander, I have some news on the genetic front. All eyes turned to the Arcturian scientist. I've developed a prototype gene therapy that could potentially neutralize the Xanthari's aggression-enhancing modifications in Deathworlder species. It's not ready for large-scale deployment yet, but with more resources. David's eyes lit up. You'll have them. I'm establishing a dedicated genetics lab right here in HQ. Staff it with the best xenobiologists we can find, human and Arcturian. As the meeting continued, an alert chimed on David's comm unit. Stevens here. Commander, came the voice of Lieutenant Harper. You're going to want to hear this. Zexgan's talking, and what he's saying. It changes everything. David's face hardened. On my way. He turned to his team. Keep working on the strike plans. I'll be back. He strode quickly to the interrogation wing, his mind racing. When he entered the observation room, he found Harper staring intently at the monitors displaying Zexgan's cell. What do we have? David asked. Harper turned, his eyes wide. Sir, Zexgan has revealed the existence of a Xanthari ruling council called the Primarchs. 7 elite members who control everything. If we can take them out, we could cripple their entire operation, David finished. He activated his comm unit. Captain Volkov, report to the war room immediately. I have a new assignment for you. As David began formulating plans to track down the Primarchs, another alert came through. This time, it was Captain Ethan Reeves on Xyrax 4, his voice tight with urgency. Commander, we have a situation. Xanthari sleeper agents have initiated a coordinated uprising. They've seized control of key government facilities. If we don't contain this quickly, it could destabilize the entire sector. David's mind raced, weighing options. After a moment of consideration, he made his decision. Captain Reeves, hold your position. I'm coming to Xyrax 4 personally. As he prepared to leave, yet another report came in, this time from a deep-cover agent in Xanthari space. The news sent a chill down David's spine. A massive Xanthari fleet, far larger and more advanced than anything they'd encountered, was gathering near the galactic core. David clenched his fists, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. As he boarded the transport bound for Xyrax 4, he knew that the true test of humanity's commitment was only just beginning. As the ship docked at the ICA headquarters, David's mind was already racing with plans for their next moves. The moment he stepped off the ship, his comm unit buzzed with an urgent message. Captain Ethan Reeves' voice crackled through, tight with tension. Commander, we have a situation on Xyrax 4. Xanthari sleeper agents have initiated a coordinated uprising. They've seized control of key government facilities. David's teeth clenched. Understood, Captain. Hold your position. I'm coming to Xyrax 4 personally. Within hours, David and his team were aboard a high-speed transport, hurtling through space towards the embattled planet. As they approached Xyrax 4, the true extent of the crisis became apparent. The planet's orbital defense grid lit up their sensors, its weapons now under Xanthari control. Evasive maneuvers. David barked as energy beams lanced past their ship. The pilot's hands flew over the controls, the transport weaving through the deadly barrage. They touched down in a clearing outside the capital city, the whine of the engines fading into an ominous silence. David surveyed the horizon, where plumes of smoke rose from multiple locations. Establish a forward operating base here, he ordered. pointing to a defensible position near a ridge. "I want a secure comm link with local loyalist forces within the hour." As his team sprang into action, David turned to Graxtor. "Your status as a Xeraxian leader could be crucial here. We need to rally as much local support as possible." Graxtor nodded, his massive frame tense with anticipation. "I'll reach out to my contacts. Many will fight when they hear a respected voice calling." Over the next few hours, David coordinated with Captain Reeves and the Loyalist Xeraxian forces, integrating them into a joint strike force. He pored over holographic maps of the city, identifying key targets. "We'll split into 3 teams," David explained to the assembled leaders. "Alpha Team will disable the planetary defense grid. Beta Team will neutralize their communication centers. Gamma Team, led by myself, will secure the central government buildings." As dawn broke over the Xeraxian capital, David's forces moved into position. The dull thud of distant explosions mixed with the whine of energy weapons as the assault began. David led Gamma Team through the streets, ducking from cover to cover as Xinthari agents unleashed volleys of advanced weaponry. The air crackled with energy discharges and the acrid smell of ozone. "Push forward," David shouted, returning fire with his plasma rifle. A Xinthari agent fell, his camouflage field flickering out to reveal his true form. They fought their way into the main government complex, a sprawling structure of gleaming metal and crystalline spires. As they secured each floor, David couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "This resistance is too organized," he muttered to Sergeant Carter. "They're fighting like they've had years of preparation, not just a few days." Carter nodded grimly. "You think this goes deeper than a simple uprising?" Before David could respond, his comm unit crackled to life. It was Xandor, his voice tense with urgency. "Commander, we've discovered something alarming. There's a hidden laboratory in the sublevels. You need to see this." David and a small team made their way down to the lab, fighting through heavily fortified security checkpoints. What they found chilled him to the bone. The laboratory was filled with stasis pods, each containing a Xeraxian subject. Holographic displays showed DNA strands being manipulated in real time. "They're not just controlling them," Xandor explained, his fingers flying over a console. "They're enhancing them. These Xeraxians have been modified far beyond their natural capabilities." David's mind raced with the implications. "We need to secure samples of this genetic material. If they've been doing this here, they could be doing it on other worlds," Xandor finished. As they worked to contain the laboratory and its dangerous contents, David's comm unit buzzed again. It was General Hawthorne from ICA headquarters. "Stevens, we've lost contact with our deep cover agent in Xinthari space," Hawthorne said, his voice grim. "But not before they transmitted partial coordinates for that massive fleet. It's on the move, Commander. We need you back here immediately." David closed his eyes for a moment, weighing his options. The situation on Xyrax 4 was far from will-powered, but the threat of the Xinthari Armada couldn't be ignored. "Understood. Sir, I'm on my way." He turned to Graxtor. "I'm leaving you in command here. Continue the push against the insurgents and secure the planet. I'll send reinforcements as soon as I can." As David prepared to depart, he secured a sample of the enhanced Xeraxian genetic material. "Get this to Xandor's team immediately," he ordered. "We need to understand what we're up against." The transport lifted off, streaking towards orbit. As Xyrax 4 receded behind them, David's mind was already focused on the challenges ahead. The Xinthari fleet, the captured pre-march, the genetic manipulations. Each thread of this complex web needed to be unraveled. As they entered hyperspace, David allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. The galaxy stood on the brink of a conflict unlike any it had seen before. And he, Commander David Stevens, found himself at the center of it all. As they entered hyperspace, David allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. The galaxy stood on the brink of a conflict unlike any it had seen before. And he, Commander David Stevens, found himself at the center of it. The moment was short-lived. As soon as the transport dropped out of hyperspace near ICA headquarters, David's comm unit lit up with urgent messages. He strode purposely down the ramp, his mind already shifting gears to address the multifaceted crisis. "Commander on deck," an officer called out as David entered the bustling command center. "Status report," David ordered, his eyes scanning the holographic displays that filled the room. General Hawthorne approached, his face grim. "The situation has escalated, Commander. We're detecting Xyntheri sleeper cell activations on multiple Deathworlder worlds." David nodded, his eyes sharp. "We need to act fast. Establish a centralized command hub here, with real-time links to all our operations across the galaxy." As technicians scrambled to set up the new command infrastructure, David turned to his second-in-command. "Major Chun, I want rapid response teams deployed to key Deathworlder worlds immediately. Priority on those with suspected collaborators in their governments." Chun saluted sharply. "Yes, sir, I'll assemble the teams and brief them on their objectives." David's gaze shifted to Captain Volkov, who stood nearby, awaiting orders. "Captain, your mission is a go. Assemble your strike force and prepare for departure. Your target is the Xyntheri Premarch." Volkov's eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Understood, Commander. We'll take the new stealth corvette. Those bastards won't know what hit them." As Volkov left to prepare his team, David focused on the looming threat of the Xyntheri fleet. He activated the main tactical display, studying the projected path of the enemy armada. "Lieutenant Ramirez, initiate a full redeployment of our naval assets." "I want a defensive line set up along this vector," David said, tracing a line across the holographic map. "And coordinate with our Deathworlder allies. We'll need their ships integrated into our formation." Ramirez nodded, her fingers flying over her console as she relayed the orders. David turned his attention to the next critical task. "Get me Xandor on the comm. We need to talk about mass-producing that genetic countermeasure." As he waited for the connection, David's mind raced through the logistical challenges. When Xandor's face appeared on the screen, David wasted no time. "Doctor, we're initiating Operation Panacea. I'm requisitioning a fleet of medical frigates for mass production of your gene therapy. How soon can you have the formula ready for replication?" Xandor's eyes widened at the scale of the operation. "With the resources you're providing, Commander, we can have the first batch ready within 48 hours. But I must stress, we haven't completed all our trials yet." David's expression hardened. "We're out of time, Doctor. We'll have to refine it as we go. Get it done." As he ended the call, David spotted Sergeant Carter across the room. "Sergeant, I have a special assignment for you. I need you to lead an investigative unit. Your job is to compile and analyze data from all Deathworlder worlds. Find the connections, uncover the full extent of Xyntheri infiltration." Carter straightened, understanding the gravity of the task. "You can count on me. Sir, I'll start assembling my team immediately." The command center hummed with activity as David's orders were carried out. He moved from station to station, coordinating the massive operation unfolding across the galaxy. "Sir," an intelligence officer called out, "we've detected movement from the Xyntheri Armada. They're advancing, splitting into multiple battle groups." David studied the updated tactical display, his mind racing through potential strategies. "They're targeting several key Deathworlder systems simultaneously," he muttered. Raising his voice, he addressed the entire command center. "All Allied forces, battle stations. This is not a drill. The enemy is on the move." As klaxons blared throughout the ICA headquarters, David's comm unit chimed with an incoming transmission. It was Graxtor, his voice tight with urgency. "Commander Stevens, we've made a disturbing discovery on Xyrax 4. There's a Xyntheri superweapon hidden beneath the planet's surface. It can amplify the genetic modifications in Deathworlder populations. If activated, it could turn entire planets into war zones instantly. David's blood ran cold at the implications. Understood, Graxtor. Hold your position and do not, under any circumstances, allow that weapon to be activated. I'm sending a specialized engineering team to neutralize it. As he ended the call, David turned to face the command center, his expression resolute. The galaxy teetered on the edge of chaos, with threats multiplying by the hour. But as he looked at the determined faces of his team, he knew they would face this challenge head-on. "Ladies and gentlemen," David addressed the room, his voice carrying over the din of activity, "we are facing an unprecedented crisis. But we have the best minds, the bravest soldiers, and the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Let's show the Xyntheri what happens when they underestimate the will of free species." With that, Commander David Stevens turned back to the tactical displays, ready to lead the fight against the Xyntheri threat on multiple fronts. The next few hours would determine the fate of countless worlds and the future of galactic civilization itself. As the command center buzzed with activity, Commander David Stevens' attention snapped to a flashing alert on the main tactical display. The ICA's Advanced Early Warning System, a network of cloak sensor buoys, had detected significant movement from the Xyntheri Armada. "Initiate Operation Shield Wall," Stevens ordered, his voice cutting through the noise. "All Allied forces, move to predetermined defensive positions." The holographic display came alive with streams of data as ICA and Deathworlder ships took up their assigned positions. Human vessels formed the core of the formation, their adaptable tactics complementing the unique abilities of their alien allies. "Major Chun," Stevens called out, "status on the rapid response teams?" Chun approached, tablet in hand. "Sir, teams are en route to the most vulnerable Deathworlder worlds. They're coordinating with local forces to implement planetary defense protocols." Stevens nodded, then turned his attention to a priority transmission from Xyrax 4. Graxtor's face appeared on the screen, his expression tense. "Commander, we've established a secure perimeter around the superweapon facility. Your engineers are working on neutralization methods, but we're facing heavy resistance." "Hold your position, Graxtor," Stevens replied. "I'm sending additional resources your way, including our top Xenotech experts. We can't let that weapon fall into enemy hands." As the transmission ended, Lieutenant Ramirez approached. "Sir, we've got an update from Captain Volkov's team." Stevens moved to a nearby console, where a secure feed displayed the progress of the stealth corvette. It had successfully penetrated the outer defenses of the Xyntheri space station, believed to house one of the Primarchs. "Excellent," Stevens murmured. "Keep me updated on their progress." Across the room, Xandor's face appeared on another screen. "Commander, we've made a breakthrough," the scientist announced, his eyes bright with excitement. "We've successfully tested an aerosol delivery system for the genetic countermeasure. It can cover large areas efficiently." Stevens' mind raced with the implications. "Outstanding work, Doctor. I'm authorizing immediate mass production aboard our medical frigates. Operation Panacea is now in full effect." As he ended the call, Sergeant Carter approached with a data pad. "Sir, we've compiled a list of suspected Xyntheri collaborators across multiple Deathworlder worlds. High-ranking officials, military leaders. The infiltration runs deep." Stevens scanned the information, his expression hardening. "Initiate coordinated strikes immediately. Work with local loyal forces to apprehend these individuals. We need to cut off the Xyntheri support network." The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as orders were relayed and strike teams mobilized. Stevens turned back to the main tactical display, where the first flashes of weapons fire were appearing along the outer defensive lines. Incoming transmission from our deep cover agents in Zintheri space, an intelligence officer called out. Stevens moved to the comm station, his interest piqued. The agent's voice came through, distorted but urgent. Commander, the Zintheri ships are equipped with a new phase shift technology. They can briefly become intangible, passing through conventional energy shields. Understood, Stevens replied, his mind already formulating countermeasures. Transmit all data you have on this technology, and get out of there safely if you can. As the transmission ended, Stevens addressed the room. I want our defense systems reconfigured immediately to counteract this phase shift technology. Work with our allies to implement these changes across the entire defensive line. Amid the chaos, another alert caught Stevens' attention. A group of Zintheri defectors had made contact, offering critical information in exchange for asylum. Stevens quickly assembled a team to meet with the defectors at a secure location. Within hours, he received a priority transmission from the meeting site. Commander, the ICA operative reported, they provided us with detailed schematics of the superweapon on Zyrax 4. This data could be the key to neutralizing it. Transmit everything to our engineering team on Zyrax 4 immediately, Stevens ordered, and ensure our new friends are kept safe. Their information could turn the tide of this conflict. As he ended the transmission, Stevens took a moment to survey the command center. Holographic displays showed battles raging across multiple star systems, strike teams moving against collaborators, and the steady progress of Operation Panacea. The galaxy was engulfed in conflict, with the fate of countless species hanging in the balance. But as Commander David Stevens watched his team work tirelessly to coordinate the multifaceted response to the Zintheri threat, he felt a glimmer of hope. A junior officer approached, interrupting his thoughts. Sir, we're detecting a significant energy buildup in the Zyraxian system. It could be the superweapon powering up. Stevens' expression hardened as he turned back to the tactical display. The battle for the future of the galaxy was nowhere near the end, and every second counted. Stevens' eyes narrowed as he processed the new information. Redirect all available power to the planetary shield generators, he ordered, his voice sharp and clear. We need to buy our team on Zyrax for more time. As the command center erupted into a flurry of activity, Stevens turned his attention to the holographic display of the Zyraxian system. The energy signature of the superweapon pulsed ominously, growing stronger with each passing second. Commander, a voice crackled through the comm system. It was a lead engineer on Zyrax 4, her words barely audible over the sound of alarms blaring in the background. We've made a breakthrough. The schematics from the Zintheri defectors, they're the key. We can neutralize the weapon without triggering its effects. Stevens leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of the console. Explain. The power source, the engineer continued, her voice steadying as she spoke. We can disrupt it safely. It'll take precise timing, but we can do it. You have full authorization, Stevens replied. Graxtor, secure that facility at all costs. Give our team the cover they need. As Graxtor acknowledged the order, another alert flashed across the tactical display. Stevens' attention snapped to a new feed, showing a fierce firefight erupting within the corridors of a Zintheri space station. Captain Volkov's voice, tense but controlled, came through the comm. Commander, we've secured the target. Pre-March in custody, encountering heavy resistance during extraction. The feed showed Volkov's team, outnumbered but holding their ground against waves of Zintheri elite guards. The captain himself was at the forefront, one arm restraining the captive Pre-March, while the other fired his weapon with deadly precision. Fall back to your extraction point, Stevens ordered. We need that Pre-March and any intel you've gathered. Your corvette will provide cover fire for your retreat. As Volkov's team fought their way back to their ship, Stevens turned his attention to another pressing matter. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy, detailing the initial results of Xandor's genetic countermeasure. "Sir," Lieutenant Ramirez called out, her eyes scanning rapidly over incoming data. "Operation Panacea is showing promising results. Treated individuals are displaying reduced aggression and increased resistance to Xintheri influence." Stevens nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Accelerate deployment. Prioritize military personnel and key government officials on all allied Deathworlder planets." As the command center coordinated the expanded rollout of the countermeasure, another alert demanded Stevens' attention. Sergeant Carter approached, his expression grim but determined. "Commander, our strikes against the collaborators have been successful," Carter reported. "We've apprehended dozens of high-ranking officials, including military leaders and planetary governors. The Xintheri's internal network is crumbling." Stevens allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before refocusing on the tactical display. The battle along the Operation Shield Wall defensive line was intensifying, with human-commanded ships leading the charge against the Xintheri Armada. "Sir," an intelligence officer called out urgently. "Priority transmission from our deep-cover agents in Xintheri space." Stevens moved quickly to the secure comm station. The agent's voice came through, distorted but clear enough to understand. "Commander, we've detected a massive Xintheri construct in orbit around a distant star. It appears to be their central command and control center for the entire fleet." Stevens' mind raced with the implications. "Can you confirm its function?" "Affirmative," the agent replied. "It's coordinating their battle strategies, resource allocation, everything. Destroying it could cripple their entire war effort." Without hesitation, Stevens began issuing orders. "I want our best tactical minds working on this immediately. We need a plan to neutralize that construct. Use the phase shift data from the defectors. Find a way to penetrate their defenses." As the command center buzzed with renewed activity, Stevens' attention was drawn back to the main tactical display. A new wave of enemy ships was emerging from hyperspace, bolstering the Xintheri forces and putting immense pressure on the defensive line. "Reallocation of resources to Operation Shield Wall," Stevens commanded. "We need to hold that line at all costs." Amidst the chaos, Xandor's face appeared on a nearby screen. "Commander, I have an update on our research. We believe we can expand on the countermeasure, not just to resist Xintheri influence, but to enhance natural resilience against future biological interference." Stevens nodded, his mind already several steps ahead. "Initiate Project Evolution Shield immediately. This could be the key to long-term security for all Deathworlder species." As he turned back to the tactical display, Stevens felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. The war against the Xintheri Conclave had reached a critical juncture, with multiple operations unfolding simultaneously across the stars. The outcome of these next few hours would determine the fate of countless worlds and species. Stevens took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The battle was nowhere near the end, but for the first time since the conflict began, he could see a path to victory. With new hope, he began coordinating the next phase of their galactic-scale counteroffensive. Operations. With renewed perseverance, Stevens turned to his command staff. "Initiate Operation Spearhead," he announced, his voice carrying across the command center. "Captain Volkov, assemble your task force. You'll be leading the assault on the Xintheri command construct." Volkov's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim but focused. "Understood, Commander. My team is ready. We won't fail." Stevens nodded. "You'll be equipped with our latest phase shift technology. Use it to breach their defenses. Good hunting, Captain." As Volkov's task force prepared for departure, Stevens redirected his attention to the tactical display showing Operation Shield Wall. The defensive line was buckling under the renewed Xintheri assault. Redirect Xeraxian battlecruisers to Sector 7, Stevens ordered. And deploy Nyx, 9 stealth ships for hit-and-run attacks along their flanks. The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as orders were relayed and ships maneuvered into position. Stevens watched as human-led ships engaged the Xynthari forces, their tactics adapting on the fly to counter the enemy's advanced weaponry. A priority transmission from Xyrax 4 cut through the chaos. The lead engineer's face appeared on screen, her expression a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "Commander, we've done it," she reported. "The superweapon is neutralized. We're beginning the dismantling process now." Stevens allowed himself a brief moment of relief. "Excellent work. Graxtor, secure that facility. I want a fortified perimeter established immediately." As Graxtor acknowledged the order, another alert demanded Stevens' attention. It was an update on Operation Panacea. "Sir," Lieutenant Ramirez reported, "the genetic countermeasure is showing unprecedented success rates. We're seeing significant reductions in Xynthari influence across treated populations." Stevens nodded, his mind already racing ahead. "Accelerate deployment. Focus on military personnel and government officials. We need to solidify our resistance to their manipulation." As the medical frigates of Operation Panacea increased their efforts, a surprising development unfolded aboard an ICA detention vessel. The captured Xynthari pre-March Zexnailer had begun to cooperate. Stevens quickly established a secure link to the detention ship. "What have you learned?" he asked the interrogation team. "Sir, pre-March Zexnailer has provided critical intelligence on the Conclave's long-term plans," the lead interrogator reported. "We're also getting detailed information on their genetic manipulation program. It's extensive. Transmit everything to Xandor's team immediately," Stevens ordered. "This could be crucial for Project Evolution Shield." As the data began flowing to the research team, Stevens' attention was drawn back to Operation Spearhead. Captain Volkov's task force had encountered heavy resistance as they approached the Xynthari command construct. "Volkov, status report," Stevens demanded. The captain's voice came through, punctuated by the sounds of weapons fire. "We've breached their initial defenses using the phase shift technology, Commander. But they're adapting quickly. We're engaged in a full-scale battle now." Stevens watched the tactical display, his expression resolute as he observed Volkov's ships weaving through the Xynthari defensive fleet. "Push forward, Captain. We need that construct neutralized." As the space battle intensified, Sergeant Carter approached with an urgent report. "Commander, we've uncovered something big. There's a hidden Xynthari research facility on a remote asteroid. We believe it's the source of their most advanced genetic manipulation techniques." Stevens' eyes narrowed. "We can't let that fall into enemy hands. Assemble a covert ops team. Lieutenant Harper will lead the infiltration." As Harper's team prepared for their mission, long-range sensors detected anomalous energy readings from the Xynthari command construct. Powerful radiation bursts began disrupting communication and navigation systems across a wide area of space. "Volkov, be advised," Stevens warned. "You're about to lose comms and NAV. Switch to manual systems and push forward." The task force acknowledged the order, their ships pressing on despite the challenges. Stevens watched anxiously as the ICA forces closed in on the construct, knowing that the outcome of this operation could turn the tide of the entire war. Amid the chaos, reports continued to flood in from Deathworlder worlds where the genetic countermeasure had been deployed. Treated populations were showing marked improvements in cognitive function and emotional stability, with many individuals reporting a newfound clarity of thought. Stevens turned to Xandor, who had been working tirelessly on Project Evolution Shield. "Doctor, I need an update on your progress. We need a permanent solution to the Xynthari threat." Xandor's eyes were bright with excitement despite his evident exhaustion. "Commander, With the data from the Zyrax for superweapon and the intelligence from pre-March Zexnailer, we're on the verge of a breakthrough. We're not just counteracting their manipulations, we're enhancing our natural resilience against future interference. Stevens nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Accelerate your efforts, Doctor. This could be the key to securing our future. As Project Evolution's shield accelerated, Operation Spearhead reached its critical moment. Volkov's task force had breached the outer defenses of the Zintheri command construct, preparing for their final push. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Harper's covert ops team approached the hidden asteroid research facility, poised to uncover the secrets of the Conclave's most advanced genetic manipulation techniques. Stevens stood at the center of the command hub, his gaze shifting between the multiple operations unfolding across the galaxy. The next few hours would determine not just the outcome of this war, but the future of Deathworlder species across the cosmos. Galaxy. As Stevens contemplated the enormity of the situation, a sudden burst of static crackled through the command center's speakers. "Commander, this is Captain Volkov." The transmission cut through, distorted but audible. "We've breached the outer defenses of the Zintheri command construct. Initiating final assault now." Stevens leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Understood, Captain. Proceed with caution. We're counting on you." The holographic projection showed Volkov's modified ICA ships weaving through the construct's superstructure, their phase shift technology allowing them to bypass the most formidable barriers. As the task force penetrated deeper, Stevens watched a small team of dots separate from the main group. "Volkov's strike team has deployed," Lieutenant Ramirez reported. "They're entering the construct's interior." Inside the massive installation, Captain Alexei Volkov led his team of elite ICA operatives through twisting corridors. The air crackled with energy as they engaged Zintheri defenders at every turn. "Push forward," Volkov shouted, his voice barely audible over the sound of weapons fire. "We need to reach the central control hub." Back at ICA headquarters, Stevens' attention was pulled to another urgent transmission. "Commander, this is Lieutenant Harper. We've successfully infiltrated the asteroid research facility." "Excellent work, Lieutenant," Stevens responded. "What's your status?" "Heavy resistance, sir," Harper replied, his breath coming in short bursts. "These Zintheri guards are unlike anything we've encountered before. Enhanced reflexes, increased strength. We're adapting, but it's not easy." Stevens frowned, processing the implications. "Secure that facility at all costs, Harper. We need whatever data they're hiding." As the operations unfolded, Zandor approached Stevens, his eyes bright with excitement. "Commander, the influx of data from both operations is proving invaluable. Project Evolution Shield is progressing faster than we anticipated." Stevens nodded, allowing himself a moment of cautious optimism. "Keep at it, Doctor. Your work may be the key to ending this war." The tactical display shifted, drawing Stevens' attention back to Operation Shield Wall. The reinforced ICA defensive line held firm against the Zintheri Armada's relentless assault. Human-led ships executed a series of daring maneuvers, creating chaos in the enemy formation. "Sir Nix, 9 stealth ships report successful hit-and-run attacks along the Zintheri flanks," Sergeant Carter announced. "Their fleet cohesion is breaking down." Stevens watched as the Allied forces pressed their advantage, exploiting the vulnerabilities created by their coordinated counterattacks. "Maintain pressure," he ordered. "Don't let them regroup." A priority alert flashed on the main screen. "Commander," an intelligence officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Zyrax 4. The engineering team has completed dismantling the Zintheri superweapon. Initiate immediate transport of core components to our secure research facility," Stevens commanded. "Graxtor, Status of your defensive perimeter? The Zeraxian's gravelly voice filled the command center. Perimeter secure, Commander. We repelled 3 Xyntheri attempts to reclaim the technology. The genetic countermeasure has significantly enhanced our combat effectiveness. As Stevens processed the updates, another transmission cut through. This is Captain Volkov. We've reached the central control hub of the construct. Engaging heavy Xyntheri resistance now. The command center fell silent as everyone listened to the sounds of intense combat filtering through the speakers. Volkov's voice rose above the chaos. Push forward. We need to secure that computer core. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Harper's voice crackled through on another channel. Commander Stevens, we've made a critical discovery in the asteroid facility. The Xyntheri have been developing a new generation of genetically enhanced soldiers. They're designed to be immune to our countermeasures. Stevens' expression hardened. Transmit all data immediately, Lieutenant. We need to accelerate Project Evolution Shield. This changes everything. As the information flooded in, Stevens made a series of rapid-fire decisions. Redirect resources to support Xandor's team. We need Project Evolution Shield operational as soon as possible. He turned to his command staff. Prepare for a large-scale offensive operation. If Volkov's team succeeds in disrupting the Xyntheri command and control systems, we need to be ready to strike. The command center buzzed with renewed activity as orders were relayed and plans set in motion. Stevens stood at the center of it all, his mind racing through scenarios and strategies. Sir, Lieutenant Ramirez called out, Captain Volkov's team has breached the final defenses. They're attempting to secure the main computer core now. Stevens nodded, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. The next few moments would determine the course of the war. As he watched the data streams flow in from multiple fronts, Stevens knew that the conflict with the Xyntheri Conclave had reached its most critical juncture. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance as Operation Spearhead, the asteroid facility raid, and Project Evolution Shield raced towards their conclusions. The Xyntheri Conclave's power was on the verge of being broken, but the threat of their new super soldiers loomed large. Stevens took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and he was determined to see it through to the end. End to victory for humanity and its allies. The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as multiple operations reached their critical junctures simultaneously. Stevens' eyes darted between holographic displays, each one showcasing a different facet of the multi-pronged assault against the Xyntheri Conclave. Commander, Lieutenant Ramirez called out, her voice cutting through the din. Captain Volkov's team has secured the central control hub of the Xyntheri construct. Stevens leaned forward, his attention now fully focused on the operation unfolding within the massive alien installation. Patch me through to Volkov, he ordered. The captain's voice crackled over the comm system, punctuated by the sounds of ongoing combat. Stevens, we've reached the main computer core. Initiating hacking sequence now. On the tactical display, Stevens watched as Volkov's team worked to breach the Xyntheri's intricate cyber defenses. Lines of code scrolled rapidly across auxiliary screens as the ICA's most advanced AI systems engaged in a digital battle against the alien protocols. Keep at it, Volkov, Stevens encouraged. If we can disrupt their fleet coordination, we'll gain a significant advantage. As Operation Spearhead progressed, another urgent transmission cut through. Commander, this is Harper. We've accessed the data on the Xyntheri Super Soldier project, but we've encountered complications. Stevens' brow furrowed. Elaborat, lieutenant. Sir, we're facing a group of enhanced Xyntheri warriors. They're unlike anything we've seen before. Increased strength, lightning-fast reflexes. We're adapting our tactics, but it's not easy. The commander's mind raced, processing the implications of this development. Hold your ground, Harper. That data is crucial. We need everything you can extract on these new enemies. Stevens turned to his second-in-command. Redirect additional resources to Xandor's team immediately. They need to integrate this new information into Project Evolution Shield as quickly as possible. Across the command center, screens lit up with incoming data from both operations. Stevens watched as Xandor and his team of human and Arcturian scientists began rapidly analyzing the influx of information, their fingers flying over holographic interfaces as they worked to enhance their genetic formula. On the front lines of Operation Shield Wall, the effects of Volkov's team's efforts became apparent. The massive Xanthari fleet, once a picture of coordinated precision, began to show signs of disarray. Ships moved erratically, their formations breaking down as the central command structure faltered. "All ships, this is Commander Stevens," he broadcast to the Allied fleet. "The enemy's coordination is compromised. Execute attack pattern Delta. Strike their key vessels and exploit any weaknesses you can find." The space around the Xanthari command construct erupted into chaos as ICA ships and their Deathworlder allies launched a series of devastating attacks. Plasma torpedoes and energy beams crisscrossed the void, finding their marks with deadly accuracy. Back on the construct, Volkov's voice came through once more. "Stevens, we've successfully disrupted their fleet protocols, but we've triggered some kind of failsafe. The entire installation is set to self-destruct." Stevens' fist tight. "How long do you have?" 10 minutes, maybe less," Volkov replied, his voice tense but controlled. "We're working to disable it now, but we need to extract as much data as possible before." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Stevens staring at a static-filled screen. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain focused on the larger picture. "Sir," Sergeant Carter interjected, "we're receiving an update from Xyrax 4. The engineering team has completed the transport of the superweapon components to our secure facility." Stevens nodded, a small victory amidst the chaos. "And Graxtor's forces?" "They've successfully repelled another Xanthari assault," Carter reported. "The genetic countermeasure is proving highly effective in combat situations." As Stevens processed this information, Xandor approached, his eyes wide with excitement. "Commander, we've done it. We've integrated the new data into Project Evolution Shield. The enhanced formula is ready for deployment, but what, Doctor?" Stevens pressed. "The delivery system is complex," Xandor explained. "It requires significant energy output and specialized equipment to implement on a large scale." Stevens' mind raced through potential solutions. After a moment of contemplation, he made a decision that would alter the course of the war. "Lieutenant Ramirez," he called out, "Initiate Protocol Omega. I want our largest battleships retrofitted with the necessary equipment to deploy Project Evolution Shield. We're going to turn them into mobile genetic enhancement platforms." Ramirez's eyes widened, but she nodded sharply. "Yes, sir, I'll coordinate with engineering immediately." As the command center buzzed with renewed activity, Stevens received another transmission from Harper's team on the asteroid facility. "Commander, we've secured the data and are initiating our extraction," Harper reported, his voice strained. "These enhanced Xanthari are giving us one hell of a fight, but we're adapting. We'll transmit combat data on their capabilities as soon as we're clear." "Understood, Lieutenant," Stevens replied. "Get your team out of there safely. That information could be the key to neutralizing this new threat." With multiple operations reaching their climax, Stevens began coordinating a massive counteroffensive. He issued rapid-fire orders, redeploying ICA and Allied forces to exploit the growing chaos in the Xanthari fleet. As he worked, a priority alert flashed on his personal console. It was a message from the ICA detention ship holding pre-March Zexnailer. Stephen's eyes widened as he read the contents, his mind already formulating a new strategy that could potentially end the war. He looked up, surveying the command center with new hope. The next phase of the conflict was about to begin, and humanity stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ahead, the message from the ICA detention ship holding Pre-March Zexnaler changed everything. Stephen's eyes gleamed with newfound grit as he processed the implications. "Attention all personnel," Stevens announced, his voice cutting through the buzz of activity in the command center. "We received critical intelligence from Pre-March Zexnaler. The location of the hidden Zintheri homeworld has been revealed." A hush fell over the room, followed by a surge of excited murmurs. Stevens wasted no time capitalizing on the moment. "Lieutenant Ramirez, initiate Protocol Sigma. I want every available ship from our alliance mobilized immediately. We're assembling the largest strike force in galactic history." Ramirez nodded sharply, her fingers flying over her console as she began coordinating the massive undertaking. "Yes, sir, sending out priority alerts to all ICA, Zeraxian, Nix 9, and allied Deathworlder fleets now." Stevens turned to Sergeant Carter. "Get me a secure line to Captain Reyes. Her mission just became our top priority." Within moments, Captain Elena Reyes' face appeared on the main screen. Stevens spoke without preamble. "Captain, your retrofitted battleships are now the linchpin of our offensive. You are to begin immediate deployment of Project Evolution Shield to key Deathworlder worlds. Start with Zyrax 4. Reyes' eyes widened slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Understood, Commander. We'll depart immediately." As Reyes' team set out on their crucial mission, Stevens refocused on the incoming data from Captain Volkov's operation. The information extracted from the Zintheri command construct before its destruction was proving invaluable. "Sir," an analyst called out, "we've completed initial processing of Volkov's data. It includes detailed schematics of the defenses surrounding the Zintheri homeworld." Stevens nodded, his mind already formulating strategies. "Excellent. I want a comprehensive battle plan on my desk within the hour. Coordinate with our allies. We'll need their unique insights to create an effective assault strategy." As the command center buzzed with renewed purpose, Lieutenant Harper's team returned from their harrowing mission at the Asteroid Research Facility. Harper, looking battered but determined, approached Stevens with a data drive in hand. "Commander, we've secured critical information on the Zintheri Super Soldier project," Harper reported, his voice hoarse from exertion. "It's already been transmitted to Xandor's team for integration into Project Evolution Shield." Stevens clasped Harper's shoulder. "Outstanding work, Lieutenant. Get your team some rest. We'll need you at your best for what's coming." With preparations for the final assault underway, Stevens turned his attention to maintaining their defensive position. "Status on Operation Shield Wall?" he inquired. Sergeant Carter responded promptly. "Our lines are holding. Sir, the disruption of the Zintheri coordination systems has severely impacted their combat effectiveness. We're slowly but surely pushing them back." Stevens nodded, then made a rapid series of decisions. Initiate a series of diversionary attacks on known Zintheri outposts and supply lines. I want Graxtor leading these operations. The more we can stretch their resources, the better our chances when we strike their homeworld. As orders flew out across the command center, Stevens received word that the first deployment of Project Evolution Shield on Zyrax 4 had been successful. Millions of Zyraxians were already showing increased resistance to Zintheri manipulation and enhanced natural abilities. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Intelligence reports flooded in, battle plans were refined, and Allied forces converged from across the galaxy. Stevens found himself at the center of a whirlwind of preparations, coordinating everything from fleet movements to the loading of specialized gravity-manipulating equipment onto dropships. Finally, As the massive Joint Strike Force assembled near the coordinates of the hidden Zintheri homeworld, Stevens called for a final briefing with the Allied fleet commanders. Holographic projections of various Deathworlder leaders filled the command center. "The time has come," Stevens began, his voice steady and resolute. "Our multi-phase assault plan begins with a coordinated EMP strike to disable their planetary defense grid. This will be followed immediately by a massive space-to-ground invasion." He outlined the roles of each fleet, emphasizing the importance of capturing key Conclave officials whose identities and locations had been provided by Zex Naylor. As he concluded the briefing, a palpable sense of anticipation filled the air. With final preparations complete and Project Evolution Shield successfully deployed to 3 major Deathworlder worlds, Stevens gave the order to commence the operation. The Joint Strike Force entered hyperspace, an armada of unprecedented size and diversity, united in a common purpose. As they approached their target, long-range sensors lit up with activity. "Commander," Carter called out, "we're detecting a significant buildup of Zintheri defensive forces around the planet. They know we're coming." Stevens nodded grimly. As expected, they're marshaling everything they have left for this final stand. The Allied fleet emerged from hyperspace on the outskirts of the Zintheri home system. Before them lay a world shrouded in secrecy for millennia, its surface obscured by a dense network of defense satellites and orbiting warships. Standing on the bridge of the ICA flagship, Commander Stevens took a deep breath. The moment he had worked towards for so long had finally arrived. With unwavering focus, he issued the command that would shape the future of the galaxy. "All ships, commence the assault. May the strength of the Deathworlders carry us to victory." The first wave of EMP-equipped ships surged forward, their weapons primed to strike at the heart of the Zintheri defenses. As energy buildup readings spiked across his tactical display, Stevens gripped the edge of his command console, his eyes fixed on the battle unfolding before him. The first wave of EMP-equipped ships surged forward, their specialized weapons discharging in a synchronized burst of electromagnetic energy. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the Zintheri defense grid, satellite arrays flickered and died, their intricate networks of sensors and weapons rendered useless. Massive energy shields that had protected the planet for millennia wavered and collapsed in sections, creating vulnerable gaps in the once impenetrable barrier. "EMP strike successful," Lieutenant Ramirez reported, her voice taut with controlled excitement. "Multiple breaches detected in the planetary shield. Zintheri defensive systems are offline in sectors 3, 7, and 9. Stevens nodded sharply. "Excellent. All ships, advance to Phase 2. Engage the enemy fleet and press our advantage." The Allied armada surged forward, a wall of steel and energy weapons bearing down on the Zintheri homeworld. Zeraxian battlecruisers led the charge, their thick armor absorbing the initial counterattack from the remaining Zintheri defenses. Sleek Nix, 9 stealth ships darted between larger vessels, their advanced cloaking technology allowing them to slip past enemy lines and wreak havoc from within. As the space battle erupted in earnest, Stevens turned his attention to the ground assault. "Captain Volkov, you have a go for planetfall. May your aim be true and your shields hold strong." "Understood, Commander." Volkov's gruff voice crackled over the comms. "My team is prepped and ready. We'll give those Zintheri bastards a fight they won't soon forget." Specialized dropships detached from the larger vessels, their hulls gleaming with the telltale shimmer of gravity-manipulating technology. As they plunged through the atmosphere, Zintheri anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky, creating a deadly gauntlet for the approaching assault teams. On the bridge of his dropship, Captain Volkov gripped the restraints of his command chair, feeling the craft buck and weave under the skilled hands of his pilot. "Status report," he barked. "Shields holding at 78%, sir," his second-in-command responded. "ETA to landing zone, 2 minutes." Volkov nodded, then addressed his team over the internal comms. Listen up, people. We're about to touch down in the heart of Zintheri territory. The gravity here is going to be a bitch, but our tech should compensate. Stay alert, stay alive, and remember your training. We've got a job to do. The dropship touched down with a bone-jarring thud, its landing struts groaning under the intense gravitational forces. As the ramp lowered, Volkov was the first to charge out, his augmented muscles straining against the crushing weight of the alien world. The Zintheri military installation loomed before them, a sprawling complex of strange, twisting architecture that seemed to defy conventional physics. Volkov's team spread out, taking cover behind alien structures as the first volley of enemy fire raked their position. Push forward, Volkov roared, his voice amplified by his suit's external speakers. Harper, take your squad left and flank their defenses. Zhang, I want suppressing fire on those towers. Move. As Volkov's team engaged the Zintheri forces head-on, Lieutenant Jack Harper led his squad through the twisting corridors of the alien research facility. The air was thick with an acrid, chemical smell that even their suit filters couldn't entirely eliminate. Stay sharp, Harper muttered, his eyes scanning the eerie, pulsating walls. Their security systems could be anywhere. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a shimmering energy field sprang to life, cutting off their advance. Behind them, the distinctive hum of Zintheri weaponry signaled an approaching patrol. Daniels, work on bypassing that field, Harper ordered. Everyone else, defensive positions. We hold this corridor at all costs. As Harper's team prepared for the coming assault, Commander Stevens monitored the battle from orbit. The space around the Zintheri homeworld had become a chaotic maelstrom of energy weapons and explosions as the Allied fleet engaged the remnants of the Zintheri Defense Force. Sir, Sergeant Carter called out, his voice cutting through the din of the command center. We're receiving reports from Graxdor's diversionary attacks. Multiple Zintheri outposts are surrendering without a fight. Stevens allowed himself a grim smile. Looks like the Conclave's iron grip is finally slipping. Coordinate with our allies to secure those surrendering forces. We can't afford to leave any loose ends. As he turned back to the main tactical display, a priority alert flashed across his screen. Stevens' eyes widened as he read the report, his mind already racing with the implications. Carter, he called out, his voice tight with urgency. Get me a direct line to Captain Volkov and Lieutenant Harper. We've just located the Zintheri ruling council. In the depths of the alien world, Volkov and Harper received Stevens' transmission simultaneously. The location of the Conclave's leadership bunker burned in their minds like a beacon, guiding them toward the heart of the Zintheri power structure. Volkov, his armor scarred and dented from intense fighting, rallied his team. Change of plans, people. We've got new orders straight from the top. The Conclave leadership is holed up in a bunker beneath the capital city. That's our target now. Harper, having just secured the research facility and captured several high-ranking Zintheri scientists, acknowledged the new directive. Understood, Commander. We're securing our prisoners and moving out. ETA to the capital city, 30 minutes. As the two teams converged on the hidden bunker, Commander Stevens coordinated the final push from orbit. Allied ships maneuvered into position, their weapon systems locked onto the coordinates of the underground complex. All ships, prepare for precision strikes on my mark, Stevens ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Ground teams, stand by for breach support. The battle for the Zintheri homeworld had reached its critical juncture. In the next few moments, the fate of the Conclave, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would be decided. Determined, in the next few moments, the fate of the Conclave, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would be decided. All ships, commence precision strikes, Stevens commanded, his voice echoing through the command center. The space above the Zinthari capital erupted in a dazzling display of firepower. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the Allied fleet, punching through the planet's weakened defenses and striking the coordinates of the hidden bunker with pinpoint accuracy. On the ground, Captain Volkov felt the earth shake beneath his feet as the orbital bombardment began. His team had fought their way through the city's outskirts, battling waves of desperate Zinthari soldiers. Now, as the dust from the strikes began to settle, he saw their target revealed, a massive, reinforced structure partially exposed by the precision attacks. "Move in," Volkov shouted, gesturing to his squad. "Breach teams, front and center." As Volkov's forces advanced on the bunker, Lieutenant Harper's team raced across the war-torn landscape of the Zinthari capital. Their captured scientists stumbled along, eyes wide with fear and resignation. "How much further?" Harper demanded, glancing at the scientist nearest to him. The Zinthari, its elongated fingers twitching nervously, gestured towards a towering spire in the distance. "The central access point is there. We can disable the inner defenses from that terminal." Harper nodded grimly, then activated his comm link. "Volkov, this is Harper. We're en route to the security hub. ETA 5 minutes. "Copy that." Volkov's gruff voice crackled back. "We're commencing our assault now. Don't keep us waiting, Lieutenant." At the bunker's perimeter, Volkov's team deployed a series of breaching charges. The explosion sent shockwaves through the alien metal, creating gaps in the once impenetrable barrier. As the smoke cleared, Volkov charged forward, his augmented muscles straining against the planet's intense gravity. "Push through," he roared, firing his weapon at the Zinthari guards pouring from the breach. "Don't let them regroup." The narrow corridors of the bunker became a chaotic battlefield. Human soldiers and their Deathworlder allies fought side by side, their weapons flashing in the dim light. The Zinthari defenders, caught off guard by the speed and ferocity of the assault, fell back deeper into the complex. Meanwhile, aboard one of the orbiting battleships, Captain Elena Reyes studied a holographic display with growing concern. "Commander Stevens," she called over the secure channel, "our scans have detected a large concentration of genetically modified Deathworlders in a subterranean complex near the bunker. Request permission to deploy evolution shield treatment." Stevens' response was immediate. "Permission granted, Captain. Free those beings and turn the tide." Reyes' team sprang into action, loading specialized canisters into precision-guided delivery systems. Within moments, the treatment was racing towards the planet's surface, targeting the ventilation systems of the underground complex. Back in the main bunker, Volkov's team had fought their way to a massive set of doors, clearly the entrance to the central chamber. As they prepared to breach, Harper's voice came over the comm. "Security systems disabled, Captain. You're clear to proceed." Volkov nodded to his demolitions expert. "Do it." The doors exploded inward, revealing a vast, dimly lit chamber. At its center stood the Zinthari Supreme Leader, flanked by the remaining members of the ruling council. Their alien features were twisted with a mixture of rage and fear as they raised their weapons. "Take them down!" Volkov shouted, diving for cover as energy bolts scorched the air around him. The firefight was intense, with both sides unleashing devastating weapons. The Zinthari leaders, protected by personal shield technology, seemed nearly invulnerable to conventional attacks. Suddenly, a familiar roar echoed through the chamber. Graxtor, the massive Deathworlder ally, charged into the fray. His enhanced strength, combined with the coordinated fire from Volkov's team, began to overwhelm the Zinthari defenses. Volkov spotted a flicker in the Supreme Leader's shield. "There," he shouted, pointing. "Concentrate fire on that weak point." As the human soldiers provided covering fire, Graxtor lunged forward. His massive fist connected with the Zenthari leader's shield, shattering it in a burst of energy. Realizing the battle was lost, the Supreme Leader reached for a device on his wrist. "If we fall," he snarled in his alien tongue, "this world falls with us." But before he could activate the dead man's switch, a precise shot from Harper's weapon, who had just arrived with his team, sent the device skittering across the floor. "Not today," Harper said, his voice cold as he trained his weapon on the Zenthari leader. With their leadership captured and their last audacious attempt foiled, the remaining Zenthari forces began to lay down their arms. Commander Stevens' voice crackled over the comms, ordering the immediate containment of all Conclave officials and the securing of all data repositories. As the dust settled, Volkov and Harper exchanged weary but triumphant glances. The battle for the Zenthari homeworld was won, but they knew their work was far from finished. The process of securing the planet, freeing the enslaved Deathworlders, and establishing a new galactic order was just beginning. Outside the bunker, the first rays of the alien sun began to pierce through the smoky haze of battle. A new day was dawning, not just for this world, but for the entire galaxy. And humanity, having proven its worth in the crucible of conflict, stood ready to take on the mantle of galactic guardianship.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.